I had the spare key halfway into the envelope when Odessa Price called across the strip of grass between her house and my daughter's. "Martin? You finally heard from Leah?" I looked up. Odessa stood beside a kinked green hose, one hand shielding her eyes. She was wearing rubber gardening shoes and an Atlanta Braves cap that had faded almost gray. "Not exactly," I said. "Scott asked me to bring this back." Her gaze dropped to the brass key in my hand, then moved to the house. The front windows were bare. I had noticed that when I pulled in, but people took curtains down for washing. At least, that was the explanation I had settled on. Odessa turned off the hose. Then why did she move out without taking half her things? The key slipped against the paper and cut a clean little line through the envelope. "What do you mean, moved out?" Now she looked sorry she had spoken. That frightened me more than the words themselves. 6 weeks ago," she said. "Middle of the night, almost. Tessa came with her car. 6 weeks. Leah and I had argued 3 weeks ago." Odessa glanced toward the front door, lowering her voice. "Scott told us she needed space. I assumed she was with you." I looked at my daughter's house, at the empty windows and the pale circles on the brick steps where her blue clay planters had been, and understood that whatever had happened, Leah had managed to disappear from her own life without coming to mine. I closed my fingers around the key. Scott had called me 2 days earlier at 8:15 in the morning, which was how I knew the conversation had been scheduled in his head. Scott liked difficult talks before breakfast. It let him feel disciplined. "I don't want this to become a whole thing," he had said. I was standing in my kitchen with the refrigerator open, trying to remember why I had opened it. That's usually how people announce a whole thing. He gave a small sigh. Not angry, patient. Scott's sighs had the craftsmanship of expensive furniture. "Leah wants the key back." For a second, I genuinely didn't know which key he meant. Then I looked toward the ceramic dish by my door. House key, truck key, mailbox key, and Leah's spare on the chipped wooden tag she had painted years ago. A crooked sunflower on one side, Dad in black marker on the other. "All right," I said. "You can leave it in the mailbox. There's no need to knock. Is Leah there?" Another pause. "She thinks a little distance would be healthy." That wasn't my question. She doesn't want an argument. I shut the refrigerator. "I'm not arguing. No, of course not." The way he said it made me feel as if I had just knocked over a glass in a nice restaurant. I could have called Leah then. I should have. But our last conversation was still sitting in me like bad food. She had called because the handrail beside their basement steps had pulled loose. Or that was the official reason. By the time I arrived, she and Scott had already had some kind of fight. He stayed in his office with the door shut. Leah followed me downstairs, arms folded, while I pressed my weight against the rail. "This didn't happen overnight," I told her. "I know. You see how these screws are backing out? Somebody could have gotten hurt." "I know, Dad. I can put anchors in, but you ought to check the upstairs rail too." She stared at the back of my neck while I worked. I could feel it. "What?" "Nothing." "You've said nothing like that since you were 19, and you've answered every mood with a toolbox since I was 19. I straightened up. The screwdriver was still in my hand. "You called me about a handrail. I called because I wanted to talk, then talk. I was trying. I remember the furnace kicking on. A vent somewhere above us gave its usual metallic clunk. I had offered to fix that twice. Scott said it gave the house character." Leah rubbed her thumb against her wedding ring. "Do you ever come over just to see me?" That was unfair, so naturally I answered the unfair part. "Last month I came for dinner. You installed a dimmer switch. You asked me to look at it. I mentioned the light was bright. You said it gave you headaches." She laughed once, without any amusement. "This is what I mean. What do you want me to do, Leah? Sit on the couch while something's broken?" "Yes. Sometimes. That should have been funny." It almost was. Instead, I told her some people would be grateful to have a father who showed up. Her face changed. Not much. Leah's face rarely changed much when something landed hard. "I don't need you to fix my life," she said. "Then stop calling me every time it falls apart." I packed my drill before the battery had cooled. Now, Odessa was watching me hold the key Scott claimed Leah wanted back, and 6 weeks had opened underneath all three of us. "Did she say where she was going?" I asked. "No, I didn't see her leave. I heard car doors around midnight and looked out because Reggie was barking. Reggie was Odessa's elderly beagle, a dog with the physique of an ottoman and the moral certainty of a judge. She had one suitcase. Tessa carried out some boxes. "What kind of boxes?" Odessa blinked. "Cardboard." I mean, were they clothes? Office things? Martin, I was looking through blinds at 1 in the morning. I didn't inventory the woman. Right. Sorry. She softened. The next day, Scott put her planters by the curb. I took them before the garbage truck came. That explained the circles on the steps. For some reason, those missing planters bothered me almost as much as the 6 weeks. Leah had made them in a pottery class when she was 27, before she married Scott, and began describing clay as something she used to do. You have them? They're behind my shed. One is cracked. They were already cracked. I know. Leah said the cracks were part of them. That sounds like Leah. It does. We stood there with the hose leaking around Odessa's shoes. A dark patch spread over the toes. What did Scott tell people? I asked. He said she needed to get her head straight. I looked back at the house. That sounds like Scott. The garage door started rising. Odessa's hand tightened around the hose nozzle. I could have hidden the key. The thought came to me automatically, which irritated me. I was 66 years old, standing on a public driveway in broad daylight, and Scott Vance could still make a person feel caught. His silver SUV rolled backward, stopped when he saw my truck, then pulled into the drive again. The garage door descended behind it. Scott got out wearing gray slacks and a white shirt, with the sleeves turned back exactly twice. He worked from home most Fridays, though his clothes always suggested he might be called to testify before Congress. Martin, he said. Scott. His eyes moved to Odessa, then to the torn envelope in my hand. I thought we agreed on the mailbox. We didn't agree. You instructed. Fair enough. He smiled at Odessa. Morning. Odessa lifted the nozzle in greeting. Water sprayed sideways and struck her hydrangeas. Scott waited. I asked, "Where's Leah?" The smile stayed, but everything behind it closed. You should ask her. I'm asking you. I don't think doing this in the driveway is respectful. To who? Anyone. Odessa looked down at her hose. I can go inside? No, I said. Scott's mouth tightened. Don't involve the neighbors. I didn't. The neighbors knew before I did. That landed. He glanced at Odessa again, and this time she looked directly back at him. Scott lowered his voice. Leah left. She's safe. She has asked for space. When? You know when? No. I know we argued 3 weeks ago. Odessa says she left 6 weeks ago. He slid his hands into his pockets. It was something he did when he wanted to look less confrontational. Then you understand why she didn't want to discuss it with you. I held up the key. Did Leah ask for this back? She doesn't want you having access to the house. She doesn't live here. It is still her house. Then why did you tell me not to knock? His eyes flickered toward the front windows. It was small, that flicker. I might have missed it if I hadn't spent most of my working life across counters from men explaining why a tool they had broken ought to be replaced for free. Give me the key, Martin. I slipped it into my shirt pocket. Scott's expression hardened. That does not belong to you. Then Leah can tell me where to return it. She doesn't want to talk to you. You seem awfully comfortable speaking for her, and you seem determined to make her separation about yourself. There it was, a neat sentence, polished and ready. For half a second, it worked. I remembered Leah downstairs with her arms folded. Do you ever come over just to see me? I remembered walking out before she could answer whatever came next. Scott saw the hesitation and stepped closer. She is dealing with a serious personal situation, he said. The most loving thing you can do is respect the boundaries she set. Did she set it? He stared at me. Call her, I said. Right now. I'm not performing for you. Then give me her address. You need to leave. He went inside through the side door without another word. The deadbolt turned loudly behind him. Odessa let out a breath. That man could make a weather report sound like a threat. I almost laughed. It came out more like a cough. My truck had been parked in that driveway dozens of times. I had replaced the porch light, repaired the gutter over the garage, carried a dining table through the front door with Scott saying, "Careful, careful," while holding nothing but his coffee. Now I stood there with the spare key pressing against my chest and couldn't remember the last time Leah had invited me over without needing something done. That hurt. What hurt worse was not knowing the last time she had wanted me and decided not to call. I got into my truck and dialed her, straight to voicemail. Leah, it's Dad. I stopped, annoyed by how formal I sounded. I'm outside your house. Odessa told me you moved out. Scott told me you want the key back, but he won't tell me where you are. I looked through the windshield at the bare windows. I'm not coming to fix anything, I said. I just need to know you're all right. I ended the call, then sat with both hands on the steering wheel. A minute later, my phone rang. Not Leah. Tessa Moreno's name appeared on the screen. I answered too quickly. Where is she? Hello to you too, Martin. Tessa? She heard your message. Is she with you? A pause. Behind Tessa's breathing, I heard the low churn of a washing machine. She's here, Tessa said. She's been here a while. 6 weeks? Yes. And nobody thought I should know? That is a conversation you need to have with your daughter. Let me talk to her. She's standing 10 feet away, shaking her head. I closed my eyes. All right, I said. Tell her I won't come if she doesn't want me to. Tessa covered the phone, but not well enough. He says he won't come, she called. Leah's voice sounded thin and far away. He always comes. There were many things I could have said to that. Most of them would have proved her point. So I took the spare key from my pocket and set it in the cup holder, sunflower facing up. Tell her I'm going home, I said. Tell her she can call when she's ready. Tessa was quiet for so long, I thought the call had dropped. Then Leah came on the line. Dad? I gripped the steering wheel again. Yeah. Another silence. Finally, she gave me an address and said, Please don't bring your tools. I won't, I said. You have some in your truck. That's different. How? They live there. Tessa made a noise that might have been a laugh. Leah didn't. 40 minutes, she said, then hung up. I drove home first. This was not entirely because she had told me to. I needed to put the key somewhere safe, and leaving it in the truck felt wrong now. It no longer opened Leah's home exactly, but it still belonged to her. I carried it inside and set it back in the ceramic dish by my door. Then I looked through the sidelight and saw my truck in the driveway. The rear compartment held 2 drills, a socket set, a stud finder, a pry bar, 3 kinds of tape, and enough miscellaneous hardware to reinforce a small bridge. Leah knew that. If she came outside and saw the bins, she would take it as proof that I had heard her request and searched for a technicality. I moved everything into the garage. When I was finished, the truck looked naked. There were 4 silver screws in the rubber floor mat behind the driver's seat. I picked those up too. Tessa's condominium complex sat behind a grocery store on the north side of town. 6 identical brick buildings arranged around a retention pond. There was a fountain in the middle that tossed water 3 feet into the air with more optimism than force. Leah had given me Building D, Unit 14. She had not told me whether to knock. I knocked. Tessa opened the door, wearing black leggings, a denim shirt, and 1 bright yellow earring. The other ear was bare. You lost something, I said. She touched her ear. No, I got interrupted halfway through deciding whether these were too much. They're too much individually. That's helpful. Tessa and Leah had worked together at the dental practice for nearly 8 years. Tessa managed billing and possessed the rare ability to make an insurance company apologize. I had met her at 2 office parties and once at Leah's house, where Scott referred to her as the loud friend after she left. She stepped aside. The condo smelled like laundry detergent and toasted bread. A wicker basket of folded towels sat on the dining table. 2 mugs rested beside the sink, one with a teabag string hanging down the outside. Leah stood near the hallway. For 6 weeks, I had apparently pictured her exactly as she had been the last time I saw her. Hair pulled back, gray sweater, arms crossed beside the basement steps. The woman in front of me wore an oversized green sweatshirt I recognized as Tessa's and a pair of wrinkled black pants. Her hair was loose and needed washing. She looked tired, but not in the dramatic way people look tired on television. She looked like she had slept every night and none of it had counted. Hi, I said. Hi. I lifted both hands a few inches. No tools. Her eyes went to my empty hands, then to the parking lot behind me. I cleared out the truck. That surprised her. It also annoyed her. You didn't have to do that. I know. Tessa looked from Leah to me. Would anybody like coffee? Water? A neutral third country? I'm fine, Leah said. I could use coffee, I said. Leah gave me a look. What? She offered. Tessa pointed toward the living room. Sit. Both of you? If you start yelling, I'm turning on the vacuum. The living room had a cream-colored couch with a blue blanket folded along the back. A paperback lay face down on one cushion. Leah picked it up before sitting, slipped a grocery receipt between the pages, and placed it on the coffee table. I took the armchair. It was low enough that my knees rose above my hips. Tessa handed me coffee in a mug that read, "Please do not summon demons in the bathroom." She sat at the dining table with her back mostly toward us, making a performance of sorting towels. I took one sip. "Scott told me you asked for the key." Leah stared at the book. "I didn't. I figured that out." "When?" "About 20 minutes after I got there." "You went to the house?" "To return the key." Her fingers pressed the book's cover flat. "Did you go inside?" "No." "Did he see you?" "Yes." "Did you fight?" "We had a disagreement in a driveway." "That means yes." "Odessa was there. Nobody threw a punch." "I wasn't worried about a punch. That stung in a way she probably intended." I set the demon mug on a coaster. "I asked him where you were. He told me to ask you." "Well, now you have. You could have saved us both time by calling me 6 weeks ago." Tessa folded a towel, unfolded it, then folded it the same way again. Leah looked toward the window. "This was a mistake." "What was?" "Having you come. I've been here 4 minutes, and you're already making it about what I did to you. I didn't say you did anything to me. You said I could have saved you time. I drove to your house with a key for a person who hasn't lived there in 6 weeks. 5.5. I stared at her. She rubbed her forehead. "I'm not saying that matters. Then why say it? Because if I don't get the details right, somebody corrects me. The somebody was not me. Or it was not only me." I leaned back in the chair, which made a soft wicker complaint under my weight. "All right," I said, 5.5 weeks. "Dad." "What? Don't do that. I'm agreeing with you." "No, you're being careful in a way that makes me sound unstable. I have no idea what kind of careful is allowed right now." "Then stop talking for a second." I stopped. The fountain outside rose and fell beyond the glass. Tessa carried the folded towels down the hallway. A door opened, then closed. She did not return. Leah picked at a corner of the grocery receipt sticking out of her book. "I left on a Tuesday," she said. "Scott thought I'd come back Wednesday. I waited. He thought I was doing what he calls a pressure exit." "What's that?" She looked up. "Sorry," I said. "You said stop talking. A pressure exit is when I leave to make him change his mind." "Have you done that before?" "No. I've gone for drives. Once I stayed at a hotel." "When?" "Last year." I almost asked why she hadn't called. The question got all the way to my teeth before I stopped it. Leah noticed. "Go ahead. No, you want to. I want to know a lot of things." Apparently wanting isn't the same as asking. She studied me, suspicious of the effort. "I stayed at the hotel one night," she said. "I went home the next morning because Scott texted that the dog had thrown up. They did not have a dog." "What dog?" "He meant himself." I blinked. For the first time, the corner of Leah's mouth moved. "That was a joke. I knew that." "No, you didn't." "No, I didn't." Her almost smile disappeared, but the room loosened by half an inch. "What happened Tuesday?" I asked. Leah closed the paperback. "I don't want to tell the whole story tonight. You don't have to. That usually means you'll keep asking from different angles. I'll try not to." She pulled one sleeve over her hand. "Dana needed somewhere to stay." "Scott's sister?" "Yes." I knew Dana well enough to know she talked with her whole body and treated every flat surface as a place to put her purse. She was 34, maybe 35, and had moved among apartments, relationships, and career plans with the confidence of someone who believed packing was a personality. "How long?" I asked. Leah gave me a tired look. "Sorry." "Scott said 2 months, maybe 3. She'd use my studio." I thought of the room at the back of the house, the one with north-facing windows. I had built waist-high shelves along one wall after Leah started working with clay. She had stood beside me, measuring the height of her glazing jars. Scott had come in at the end and said the shelves looked professional. "You said no," I said. "I said we needed to discuss it." "That's not no, I know." "What did Scott say?" "That we'd been discussing it for years by letting the room sit empty." "Did it?" "Sometimes. I wasn't in there every day." "That's not what I asked." Her eyes sharpened. "This is why I didn't call." I felt the old defense rise. "You called me here. You're telling this out of order. I'm only trying to understand." All of it was true, and none of it would help. I picked up the mug, though I didn't drink. "Okay," I said. Leah watched me lower it again. They packed my things while I was at work, she said. Scott and Dana. They moved the wheel into the garage and boxed the tools. Not carefully, they used those big wardrobe boxes, so everything was just thrown in together. I knew the wheel. Blue casing, heavy base, a pedal Leah controlled with her right foot. I had helped get it through the studio door after she bought it used. Did they break anything? She gave a short laugh. You lasted almost 30 seconds. I'm asking because Clay Tools can. I know why you're asking. I pressed my lips together. One bowl, she said. The green one with the carved rim. Dana put a lamp on top of the box. That bowl took you weeks. I know. What did Scott say? That my reaction was proving why he hadn't told me beforehand. The wicker arm creaked under my hand. Leah noticed. If you get angry, I'm going to feel like I have to calm you down. I'm not angry. Your fingers are white. I let go of the chair. 4 pale marks remained in the skin of my palm. I can be angry without making it your job, I said. She looked at me for a long moment. Can you? It was not a challenge. That made it harder. I don't know, I said. Tessa reappeared at the end of the hallway, now wearing both yellow earrings. I decided they were the correct amount. Leah wiped at one eye with the sleeve covering her hand. You're ridiculous. I have been saying that for years. Tessa crossed to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. I'm making grilled cheese. Martin, if you say no out of politeness, I'll assume yes. I wasn't going to say no. That's why you're my favorite Hale. I'm the only Hale you know. Leah, did you hear him making my compliment difficult? I've had 38 years of it. There it was again, the almost normal shape of us. It lasted until Tessa put butter in a skillet. I asked, what do you need from me? Leah's face closed a little. I don't know. Fair answer. I mean it. I don't want to go home. I don't want you marching over there. I don't want an apartment list or a speech about protecting my credit. I don't want to hear that you never liked him. I did like him. She raised an eyebrow. For 2, maybe 3 weeks. That got a real laugh. One breath startled out of her. Tessa pointed a butter knife at me in approval. Then Leah's shoulders dropped. I'm embarrassed, she said quietly. I looked at the floor between us. I know something about that, I said. She waited for me to turn it into advice. When I didn't, she nodded once. Tessa served grilled cheese on mismatched plates. We ate in the living room because the dining table was still covered in towels. Leah took half a sandwich and pulled it apart without finishing it. When I left, she walked me to the door. Do you have the key? She asked. At home. Can you keep it for now? I searched her face. Are you sure? I don't want Scott to have it. It opens his house. It opens my house, too. She said it firmly, but her hand tightened around the edge of the door. I'll keep it, I said. Don't use it. I won't. And don't come back tomorrow with storage bins. I wasn't planning to. She looked at me the way she had looked at the empty truck. I drove home thinking about wardrobe boxes, a broken green bowl, and every apartment complex within 10 miles of her office. By the time I reached my kitchen, I had already started a list. The list began with rent, not an amount. I didn't know what Leah could afford, and I was trying not to make assumptions. I wrote questions instead. How close to work? 1 bedroom or studio? Parking, ground floor, laundry. At 11:30, I added good light. At midnight, I crossed out secure building because it sounded as if I expected Scott to kick down a door. He would never kick down a door. Scott would stand outside, explaining that her refusal to open it was emotional abuse. I went to bed at 12:20 and woke at 5:40 with my jaw aching from grinding my teeth. By 7, I had printed information for 4 apartment complexes. By 8, I had arranged the pages from lowest rent to highest and put them in a blue folder. By 8:15, I understood this was exactly what Leah had told me not to do. At 8:30, I bought 6 storage bins. There are people who can recognize their worst habits as they perform them and stop. I have always admired those people from a distance. The bins were clear, not colored. That felt less presumptuous. I also bought packing paper, masking tape, and 2 black markers. I left the tape and markers in the truck because I did have limits. Tessa opened her door on the first knock. She wore a long robe patterned with pink flamingos and held a spatula like a weapon. "Oh," she said. "You. Good morning." Her eyes moved past me to the stacked bins in the truck bed. "You're very brave. I brought breakfast. That may save your life." I held up a paper bag from the bakery Leah liked. The bottom was already darkening with butter. Tessa stepped aside. She's in the shower. Put the food down and consider fleeing. I'll wait. You're not my favorite Hale anymore. I had a good run. The condo was quieter than the night before. Sunlight came through the sliding glass door and caught every streak on the glass. Tessa had cleared the towels from the dining table. Leah's paperback was gone from the coffee table, but her tea mug was still by the sink. I set out 3 pastries. 2 cheese, 1 cherry. Leah always said cherry filling tasted like cough syrup, then ate half of mine. Where are the bins? Tessa asked. In the truck. Good. Leave them there. That was the idea. The idea was not to buy them. She has things to get from the house. She has a friend with boxes. Cardboard collapses. So do relationships, Martin. We still use those? I looked at her. Too early? She asked. A little. She poured coffee into 2 mugs. For what it's worth, she was better after you left. Better how? She ate the rest of the sandwich. That's not much. No, it isn't. The bathroom door opened. A few minutes later, Leah came down the hallway in jeans and a navy shirt, rubbing a towel through her wet hair. She stopped when she saw me. Her gaze went to the blue folder on the table. Then she looked through the window at my truck. You bought bins. I did. I asked you not to. You said not to come back with bins. And here you are. They're technically in the parking lot. Tessa took her coffee and walked toward the hallway. I'm going to be in my bedroom, judging both of you. Leah dropped the towel over the back of a chair. Why would you do this? You need your things out of the house. I didn't say that. You can't leave your clothes and pottery there indefinitely. Scott said I could get them when I'm ready. Scott also packed your studio when you weren't there. So, your answer is to decide when I'm ready? That isn't what I'm doing. She pointed at the folder. What's that? I looked down at it. Apartments. Her face went still. Just information, I said. I told you I didn't want an apartment list. I know. You know? I was trying to help. You were trying to stop being uncomfortable. The accuracy of that made me angry. I opened the folder. One of these is 12 minutes from your office. One has north-facing windows. I didn't schedule tours. I didn't call anybody. You only spent your night building me a new life I didn't ask for. That's dramatic. She laughed, but there was nothing funny in it. You showed up less than 12 hours after I said not to do this. Tessa said you're sleeping in her spare room beside office boxes. Tessa's voice came from down the hallway. Do not drag me into this. Leah gripped the back of the dining chair. I'm aware of where I sleep. And how long is that supposed to continue? I don't know. You need a plan. No, you need me to have a plan. Those are different things. I'm not going to apologize for wanting you somewhere stable. I didn't ask you to apologize for wanting it. I asked you not to take over. I printed 4 pages. You cleared your truck, brought breakfast, printed 4 pages, and bought enough bins to move me before 10 in the morning. I looked out at the truck. 6 had seemed reasonable at the store. From the second-floor window, they appeared to be breeding. I can return them, I said. That isn't the point. I'm trying to respect what you want. No, you're trying to find the correct amount of fixing that lets you keep fixing. That one silenced me. Leah sat at the table and pressed her palms over her eyes. I should have called you yesterday and told you not to come, she said. You did tell me, and you came anyway. Yes. She stood again. I can't do this. Do what? Manage you and Scott at the same time. I felt the words strike somewhere under my ribs. I'm not Scott. I know that. It doesn't sound like it. He decides what I need because he knows better. You decide what I need because you love me. Do you understand how exhausting it is to fight both versions? I reached for the folder, intending to close it. My hand stopped on the first page. There were yellow highlights beside rental amounts, travel times, deposit requirements. I had even circled which units included water. It looked less like information than evidence. I closed the folder and put it on the floor beside my chair. You're right, I said. Leah stared at me, prepared for the sentence after it. I had one too. The circumstances are different. I'm your father. Somebody has to think practically. Each version lined up and waited. Instead, I said, I was uncomfortable. She slowly lowered her hands. I've spent 6 weeks not knowing anything was wrong, I continued. Then I found out from your neighbor, and I came home to a quiet house where there wasn't one useful thing I could do. I didn't like how that felt. That doesn't make it my job to give you something useful? No. Then why did you bring the bins? Because I'm not as quick a learner as I advertise. Her mouth twitched, but she didn't let me off. I looked toward the hall where Tessa had vanished. After your mother and I divorced, I was bad at being alone. Leah's expression shifted. Our family had discussed the divorce many times without discussing anything underneath it. You were 22, I said. You had your own apartment and your first real job. I called to check your tire pressure. I stopped by to change air filters you knew how to change. Every time you let me help, I got to pretend I wasn't asking you to keep me company. You never asked, I know. You acted like I needed you there. I know that too. She looked down at her hands. Sometimes I did. Sometimes isn't always. No. And being useful became a way to avoid asking if I was wanted. If I fix something, people have to let me stay until I'm done. The condo went quiet except for a clock ticking above the stove. Leah sat across from me. That's a depressing thing to realize before breakfast, she said, especially with cheese pastries getting cold. She glanced at the bag. You bought cherry, for me? You hate cherry. I'm broadening my horizons. You bought it because I always steal half. I don't know what you're talking about. She took the cherry pastry from the bag, broke it in half, and put the smaller piece on my napkin. It was not forgiveness. I knew better than to make it that. Tessa came down the hallway dressed in running clothes. Is anybody bleeding? Not yet, Leah said. Tessa saw the folder on the floor. Progress. I'm taking the bins back, I said. Leah looked toward the window. Keep 2. I waited. For my office clothes, she added. I only brought enough for a week. I keep wearing the same 3 shirts, and Angela at reception has started looking concerned. Do you want me to go with you? I don't know. Okay. She means no, Tessa said. I might mean no. Then I'll wait until you know. Leah ate another bite of pastry. Scott texted me last night. I kept my hands flat on the table. He said you upset Odessa and refused to return his property. The key is yours. I know. What did you tell him? Nothing. Tessa opened the refrigerator, took out a bottle of water, and shut the door harder than necessary. Leah unlocked her phone and placed it on the table between us. Scott's message was long enough to require scrolling. I'm sorry your father has inserted himself before we've had a chance to discuss next steps. He created a scene with Odessa, refused a simple request, and is clearly using a vulnerable moment to make himself indispensable. This is exactly the dynamic we have discussed. I will not participate in turning our private marriage into another project for him. Below that, sent 6 minutes later, I love you. I'm here when you're ready to come home and have an adult conversation. I read both messages twice. That's impressive, I said. What is? He managed to call both of us childish without using the word. Leah picked up the phone. He's good at that. I wanted to tell her Scott was afraid. I wanted to point out every turn of phrase, every accusation hidden as concern. I could already see the structure of it, the way I saw a loose joint in a chair. So I said, What do you think? She leaned back and looked toward the bright sliding door. I think if I answer, I'll spend the whole day explaining why my answer was wrong. Then, don't answer today. Her eyes came back to mine. That sounded like advice, I said. You can ignore it. I probably will. Good. She picked up the black marker I had left beside the pastries. I had forgotten it was in my shirt pocket at the store and must have set it down with my keys. Leah pulled the blue folder onto the table, turned it over, and wrote on the blank back. Work clothes, gray coat, blue chair, recipe box, yellow bowl, pottery tools. She stopped before the next item. You built shelves in that studio, she said. I did. Scott says they're part of the house. They are. I thought you'd be mad. I am. She waited. But they're shelves, I said. I can build more. Her eyes filled before she looked down at the list. Not today, she said. Not today, I agreed. She added one final line. Green bowl pieces, if they're still there. She capped the marker and left the list face down. I returned 4 bins on the way home. The young man behind the service counter asked if anything was wrong with them. I told him I had overestimated my storage needs. He looked past me at the 2 I had kept in the cart. Still got storage needs, he said. Just fewer. He nodded as if this confirmed something he already believed about my generation. At home, I put the 2 bins in the garage and the key in the ceramic dish. Then I moved the key from the dish to my desk drawer because the dish was visible through the sidelight. Scott did not have a habit of appearing at my house, but neither had Leah until recently had a habit of leaving hers at midnight. I ate half a sandwich over the sink, turned on a basketball game, and spent 20 minutes not hearing it. At 2, my phone rang. Scott's mother, Marianne, had called me 3 times in 12 years. Once to ask if Leah was allergic to shellfish, once after a tornado warning, and once by accident when she meant to call a man named Marvin. Martin, she said, in the tone people use when entering a room after an argument. I hope I'm not intruding. You're not? I heard there was some unpleasantness yesterday. That was quick. Scott is concerned. Scott is often concerned when other people know what he's doing. She inhaled. I'm not calling to take sides. That was her second announcement of a thing she was about to do. He says Leah has been under a great deal of stress. I imagine moving out will do that. He said the separation was meant to be private. Apparently it was meant to be private from me. I don't know the details. Then this might be a short conversation. She went quiet. I had always liked Marianne more than I wanted to. She was a careful woman with silver blonde hair and a laugh that escaped her before she could decide whether it was appropriate. At holidays, she helped clear plates but never sat until everyone else had. Scott treated her like a valued employee in a business she had forgotten she joined. Dana called me crying, she said. Why? She feels responsible. Is she? Martin. I'm asking. She needed a temporary place to stay. Leah had a room that wasn't being used. I don't see why that should end a marriage. It didn't. You know that? No. But rooms don't end marriages. She did not answer. I sat at my kitchen table and looked toward the desk drawer. Did Scott tell you he packed Leah's things without asking her? I said. He said they made room for Dana. Those sentences aren't the same. Dana said most of it was old craft material, pottery. I know what it was. Then call it that. Her patience thinned. I am trying to keep this from becoming uglier than it needs to be. By calling me, by asking you not to encourage Leah to make permanent decisions while she's upset. I almost asked what Scott had encouraged her to do while she was not upset. Instead, I said, Leah makes her own decisions. Of course. You don't sound convinced. I sound worried. For Scott? For all of you. It was such a Marianne answer that I had no place to put my anger. She meant it. That was the problem with families. Harm rarely arrived wearing a name tag. Sometimes it brought a casserole and asked everyone to lower their voices. I'm not encouraging Leah to do anything, I said. She's staying with you? No. Another pause. Scott thought she might be. Scott thinks I'm making myself indispensable. Marianne gave a surprised little breath. He had not told her about the message. Am I? I asked. That's between you and Leah. Finally, something we agree on. I ended the call as politely as I could, which meant neither of us said goodbye warmly enough to believe it. Leah texted at 7:40 the next morning. Could you come at 10? Just the clothes and kitchen things, 2 bins, no speeches, I replied. Yes. Then I typed, do you want coffee? I deleted it. At 9:58, I pulled into Tessa's lot with 2 empty bins in the truck bed. Leah was waiting at the curb in jeans, boots, and a tan jacket I remembered buying her for Christmas years ago. The sleeves were slightly too short. She had told me it fit. She opened the passenger door and looked behind the seats. Inspection? I asked. Verification. I feel trusted. You brought rope. That stays in the truck. You removed everything else. Yes. She climbed in. That's weird. I've been told. The drive to her house took 17 minutes. Leah spent the first 10 reading messages without answering them. Her thumb moved up and down the screen. Marianne called me yesterday, I said. Her thumb stopped. What did she want? To avoid taking sides in your marriage by telling me to take Scott's. Leah looked out the window. He called her Friday. How do you know? She called me Friday night. I didn't answer. Do you want to know what she said? No. All right, a mile passed. What did she say? That you shouldn't make permanent decisions while upset. Leah laughed softly. Scott's favorite weather condition. What? Upset. If I'm angry, I'm upset. If I'm sad, I'm upset. If I'm calm, I'm being cold because I'm upset. What happens if you're happy? He takes credit. I tightened my hands on the wheel, then loosened them before she noticed. Scott's SUV was in the driveway. Dana's red hatchback was parked at the curb, one tire pressed against the grass. Odessa's curtains moved when we pulled up. Leah stared at the house. We can leave, I said. No, you don't have to prove anything. I'm getting clothes. Okay. You're staying in the truck. Okay. She turned toward me. That was too easy. I'm trying something new. Don't overdo it. She got out and walked to the front door without looking back. She did not use a key. She rang the bell. Scott opened almost immediately. Even from the truck, I could see him notice me. His face arranged itself, then he stepped aside for Leah. The door closed. I watched the clock on the dashboard. At 4 minutes, I considered the radio. At 7, I turned it on and lowered the volume until it was barely more than static. At 12, Odessa came out with a trash bag, walked slowly to her bin, and gave me a questioning look. I lifted one hand. She lifted hers back. At 18 minutes, my phone buzzed. "Can you bring one bin?" I took a bin from the truck and carried it to the porch. Before I could ring, the door opened. Scott stood there. "Set it down," he said. "Leah asked me to bring it. You've brought it." From somewhere behind him, Leah said, "Dad, come in." Scott did not move. It was a small moment. No raised voices, no threats. Just a man standing in a doorway, deciding whether an invitation from a woman inside her own house outweighed his preference. Leah appeared behind him. I asked him to come in. Scott looked at her. "We agreed this would be private. No, you told me he should stay outside. And you said fine. I changed my mind." He stepped aside. I wiped my shoes on the mat, though they were clean. The living room looked wrong, not dramatically wrong. The couch sat where it always had. The pictures were still on the wall. But Leah's woven blanket was gone from the arm, and the blue reading chair had been moved from beside the window to the corner near the dining room, where a tall artificial plant partly blocked it. Dana stood beside the kitchen island in a long cardigan, holding a mug with both hands. "Hi, Martin," she said. "Dana." Her hair was piled on top of her head. She looked tired and defensive. 2 open suitcases lay near the hallway. "I never meant for any of this to happen," she said. Leah walked past her carrying folded shirts. "Don't. I just want him to know. He's here to carry a bin." Dana looked at me, asking without words for relief from Leah's cruelty. I set the bin beside the stairs. Scott closed the front door. "This is exactly why I wanted to coordinate a time without an audience." "I'm not an audience," I said. "You're already commenting." That was my first sentence. "Dad." I stopped. Leah knelt and began placing clothes in the bin. Gray slacks, 2 sweaters, a navy dress, shoes wrapped in a bath towel. Dana lowered her mug. I told her she could take as long as she needs. Leah did not look up. "In my house. I meant today. In my house." Scott stepped toward the stairs. "Nobody is disputing that this is your home, except I had to ring the bell. You left your key. I left at 1 in the morning with 1 suitcase. You made that choice." Leah's hands went still inside the bin. I could see her beginning to disappear. Her shoulders drew in, her chin lowered. Scott's voice had not changed, but the room had tilted toward him. I wanted to correct it. I wanted to say something sharp enough to cut the tilt in half. Instead, I asked Leah, "What's next on your list?" She looked at me. "The gray coat," she said. "Where is it?" "Hall closet." I went to the closet. Scott started to object, then didn't. The gray wool coat hung behind 3 jackets I did not recognize. I carried it to Leah. She folded it carefully on top of the shirts. "The recipe box," she said, "and the yellow bowl." The yellow bowl sat on an open shelf over the coffee maker. Her grandmother had used it for biscuits, though I had only ever seen Leah use it for lemons. I took it down with both hands. The recipe box was not beside it. "It was here," Leah said. Dana looked toward Scott. "What?" he asked. "You moved some kitchen stuff." I consolidated. "Where?" Leah said. Scott opened a lower cabinet and pulled out a cardboard box labeled "Donate." The word was written in his neat block printing. He set it on the island. Inside were 3 chipped mugs, a salad spinner, 2 plastic pitchers, and Leah's wooden recipe box. She lifted it out without speaking. Scott frowned. "That shouldn't have been in there." "No," Leah said. "It shouldn't. I was cleaning. I've been gone 5.5 weeks. You left the house in limbo, and you turned my things into donations. It was 1 box. Leah held the recipe box against her chest. "Where are my pottery tools?" Dana's mug touched the counter with a soft click. "In the studio," she said. Scott looked at her. "Most of them are in the garage." "Most?" Leah asked. Dana's face reddened. "I used a few." The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the refrigerator motor. Leah set the recipe box inside the yellow bowl. "Show me," she said. Dana led us down the hallway. The studio door was closed. When she opened it, I saw a bed where Leah's wheel had been, a white comforter, Dana's open makeup case on the work table, and 3 wet clay pots lined across the shelves I had built for my daughter. For a few seconds, nobody said anything. One of Dana's pots leaned slightly to the left. Another had 4 deep grooves pressed around its middle. They were beginner's pieces, earnest and uneven. The kind Leah used to bring home from class and set on my kitchen counter as if she were apologizing for them. Dana moved first. "I bought my own clay," she said. Leah walked to the shelves. She touched the rim of the crooked pot with one finger. "This is mine." "The pot? The clay?" Dana looked at Scott. "You said it was old." "It was in an open bag," he said. "It was wrapped in plastic inside a sealed bucket," Leah said. "I didn't inspect it." "No, you just gave it away." Dana crossed her arms over the cardigan. "I can replace clay." Leah opened the top drawer of her work table. Dana's cosmetics rolled softly against one another as the drawer struck them from below. Inside were brushes, wooden ribs, trimming tools, and 3 tubes of lipstick. "My things are mixed with yours. I needed somewhere to put stuff. You have the entire room. I'm sleeping in it, Leah. I'm not colonizing it." Scott gave me a look that asked whether I could hear how unreasonable my daughter was being. I knew that look, because I had used a version of it myself whenever Leah's mother objected to something I considered minor. "Can you believe we're spending time on this?" Leah pulled open another drawer. "Empty." "Where's my apron?" "I don't know," Dana said. "The canvas one. It had red ties." I said, "I don't know." Scott leaned against the doorframe. "Maybe this isn't the best time." "For what?" Leah asked. "Finding my property? For assigning motives to every mistake?" She turned toward him. "What motive did I assign?" "You're acting like we deliberately erased you." The room became very still. Leah looked at the bed, the makeup case, and Dana's 3 wet pots on her shelves. "I didn't say that," she said. "You didn't have to." No, apparently I didn't. I put my hands in my pockets. My fingers found the 4 screws I had removed from the truck floor the day before. I had dropped them into my jacket without thinking. "Where are the boxes?" I asked. Scott looked at me. "The garage? Can we see them?" "I don't know why you're saying we." "Because Leah asked me to carry a bin. She didn't ask you to evaluate the house." I looked at Leah. "Do you want me to come?" "Yes." Scott pushed away from the doorframe. "Leah, you told me this was going to be quick. I told you I was getting clothes and kitchen things. Then I found my recipe box marked for donation. That was an accident. Then I found Dana making pots with my clay. Also not an attack. You're the only person using the word attack." Dana stepped between the bed and the work table. "I don't want to be in the middle of this." Leah gave her a look almost gentle enough to hurt. "You're sleeping in the middle of it." Dana's face folded for half a second. She turned away and began closing her makeup case. I followed Leah and Scott through the kitchen to the garage. Dana remained behind. The garage smelled of cut grass, gasoline, and cardboard. Scott's SUV usually occupied the left side. With it in the driveway, I could see what had been packed along the wall. Leah's pottery wheel stood under an old painter's cloth. 4 boxes were stacked on top of it. I reached for the first box. "Don't," Leah said. My hand stopped. "Sorry." She moved it herself. The box was labeled Christmas lights. The next held extension cords. Underneath those sat a plastic tub of cleaning supplies that had leaked something blue down one side. Leah lifted the cloth. The wheel's casing was dusty. Its power cord had been wrapped around the pedal and tied in a knot. A dark ring marked the metal where a paint can had rested. "You can clean that," Scott said. Leah looked at him. "Did I ask if I could clean it?" "I'm trying to reassure you about damage you caused. It's dust." I crouched before I remembered not to. My knees were already bent, my hand inches from the cord. Leah saw me. "Can I look?" I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. The knot had pinched the cord sharply near the plug. I loosened it without pulling. The insulation was not split. I rotated the wheel head. It moved, though there was grit underneath. "It'll need cleaning before you run it," I said. "The cord looks all right." Scott laughed once. "Thank God we have an expert." I stood. There are remarks that invite an answer, and remarks that invite a mistake. Scott was very good at the second kind. Leah pulled the painter's cloth back over the wheel. "Where are the boxes with my tools?" Scott gestured toward the rear wall. "Those 2, I think." One was a wardrobe box, nearly as tall as Leah's shoulder. The top had been folded over, not taped. She opened it. Her canvas apron lay at the bottom, beneath a lampshade, rolled posters, and a framed photograph from their wedding. The glass had cracked from one corner to the other. Leah lifted the frame. In the picture, she and Scott were coming down the church steps. She was laughing at something outside the frame. Scott's hand rested at her waist. His face turned toward the crowd. "You packed our wedding picture?" she asked. "It was in the studio closet. It was in the upstairs hall." Scott frowned as if checking a record only he could see. "I don't remember moving it. Dana had come into the garage behind us." "I did." Scott turned. "You told me to clear the hall table," she said. "I meant the mail and keys. You said everything that was hers. The word hers hung there." Scott straightened. "That is not what I said." Dana's chin rose. "Okay. What does that mean?" "It means, okay." "No, it means you're implying something." Leah set the photograph on a nearby shelf. "Where's the green bowl?" Dana looked down. My stomach tightened. "What?" Leah asked. "I'm sorry," Dana said. "I thought it was already broken. It was chipped. It split when I moved the box. Where are the pieces?" Scott rubbed a hand over his forehead. "We don't need to excavate every damaged craft project." Leah did not look at him. "Where are they, Dana?" "I put them in the trash." "When?" "The day I moved in." The trash had been collected 5 times since then. Leah stared into the wardrobe box. Her face did not change, but one hand closed around the red ties of her apron. "I have a piece," Dana said. Scott turned sharply. "Why?" "I like the glaze." She went back into the house. Nobody followed her. Scott stepped closer to Leah. "I'm sorry about the bowl. You never liked it. I didn't break it. You called it lopsided every time I used it. It was lopsided. It was supposed to be." "How would I know that? I told you." He opened his mouth, then shut it. Dana returned holding a curved green shard about the size of her palm. The carved rim ran along one edge. She offered it to Leah. "I was going to make something with it," she said, "like a mosaic." Leah took the piece. "With the thing I made? I didn't think you wanted it. Why?" "Because you left." Leah looked from Dana to Scott. The anger went out of her face. "That frightened me more than when it was there." "Dad," she said, "get the other bin." I brought it in from the truck. We filled one with pottery tools, the apron, and small containers of glaze. Leah packed each item herself. The second held her work clothes, the gray coat, recipe box, yellow bowl, and wedding photograph. The green shard went inside the recipe box. Scott stood by the kitchen island while I carried the first bin toward the door. "We need to discuss the larger items," he said. "I'm not comfortable with furniture disappearing without an inventory." Leah glanced at the blue chair. "My father bought that chair for me. That doesn't automatically make it separate property. This isn't a courtroom, Scott. I'm trying to prevent more confusion. You put my recipe box in a donation pile and apologized. No, you called it an accident." He looked at me. "You understand the difference between an emotional reaction and a practical conversation." I shifted the bin against my hip. "I understand you're asking me to help you manage my daughter. I'm asking you not to inflame her. You've known me 12 years. Have you ever seen me this restrained?" Leah made a sound that was almost a laugh. Scott didn't. Outside, Odessa was standing near her mailbox with a padded shipping envelope she had no apparent reason to examine for that long. When she saw Leah, she abandoned the performance. "Oh, honey." Leah set her bin down before Odessa reached her. They hugged beside the curb. Odessa was shorter, and the brim of her Braves cap caught under Leah's chin. "I didn't know where you went," Odessa said. "I'm sorry, you don't apologize to me. I just wanted to know you were breathing." "I am. Barely eating, by the look of you." "Odessa." "What?" "I'm allowed one observation." She noticed the yellow bowl through the clear side of the bin. Her eyes moved toward the house. "I saved your planters," she said. Scott put them out. Behind us, the front door remained open. Leah looked at Scott. "You told me the frost cracked them." One cracked. They were falling apart. They were mine. I didn't think you were coming back for broken pots. Odessa planted both hands on her hips. Those pots survived 6 winters and Reggie peeing on one of them. Scott's expression changed at the mention of the dog, as if he had been handed irrelevant testimony. Leah bent and picked up her bin. "Keep them for me?" she asked Odessa. "As long as you need?" We loaded the bins into the truck. I tied them down with the rope Leah had mocked, though they were not going anywhere. She climbed into the passenger seat and closed the door. I started the engine. Scott stood on the porch with Dana behind him. Halfway down the block, Leah said, "Don't tell me you were right about him. I wasn't planning to." "You were. I've been wrong about plenty of people." She watched the houses pass. "Did you know?" she asked. "Know what?" "That it was like that." I took a right at the corner. "I knew I didn't like how small you got around him," I said. "I thought saying that would make you defend him. It would have. So I complained about his gutters instead." She leaned her head against the window. "You always hated those gutters. They were badly pitched. That earned me nothing. At Tessa's, I carried both bins inside and set them where Leah pointed. I did not open them, organize them, or suggest where anything should go. Before I left, she handed me the broken green piece. "Can you keep this too?" I turned it over in my palm. The glaze was cool and glossy, the carved edge rough where the bowl had split. "Do you want me to fix it?" "There's nothing to fix." I looked at her. "I just don't want to see it right now," she said. So I carried it home, wrapped it in a clean dish towel, and placed it in the desk drawer beside her spare key. I had barely closed the drawer when the doorbell rang. Scott stood on my porch. He had changed out of the white shirt and into a quarter-zip sweater, but he still looked dressed for a conversation he expected to win. His SUV was parked at the curb instead of in my driveway. "You followed me?" I asked. "I know where you live." That didn't answer the question. "I waited until you were done. Consider it." His eyes moved past my shoulder into the house. "May I come in?" I almost said no. Then I remembered how he had stood in his own doorway and made Leah repeat her invitation. I stepped aside. Scott had been inside my house before, though not often. He and Leah came for dinner twice after the divorce. Then holidays shifted to their place because they had more room. He looked around now, as if checking whether I had preserved evidence of an earlier version of myself. The family pictures were still on the bookcase. Leah at 24 in a red graduation robe. Leah and Scott on their wedding day. A photograph from a mountain trip where all three of us were smiling into a cold wind. Scott stopped beside my kitchen table. "I'd like the key," he said. "No. You acknowledge it opens my house. It opens Leah's house. She asked me to keep it. She left it behind. She asked me this morning." His jaw tightened. "Of course she did. What does that mean?" "It means you've made yourself part of this exactly as she wanted." I leaned against the counter. "You came here. I was doing a decent job staying out of it. You spent an hour inventorying our belongings. I carried 2 bins. You inspected the pottery wheel. She asked me to. After you prompted her, I asked permission before I touched it. You should try that." His face colored, just slightly. "Dana didn't understand the situation," he said. "You told her everything Leah left was hers. That is not what I said. Dana seems to remember it that way. Dana is under stress. She lost her job, her roommate broke the lease, and she had nowhere to go. She has a mother. My mother's condo allows 1 resident. She has you." "Yes." "Which is why I offered her a room." I pushed away from the counter. "A room wasn't yours to offer alone. You have heard one version. I saw the room. You saw a temporary bed and some art supplies, pottery tools." He shut his eyes briefly. "This is what I mean. Everything becomes a correction with you. I had been corrected by Leah on that exact subject less than 24 hours earlier. Hearing it from Scott made me want to reject it out of spite. Instead, I said, "You're right about that." He opened his eyes. "I correct too much," I continued. "I enter rooms thinking my experience gives me a vote. It doesn't." Scott's expression shifted. He had arrived ready to push against a wall and found a doorway instead. For a moment, neither of us knew what he should do with it. Then he said, "That's all I've ever asked you to understand?" "No, it isn't." His shoulders stiffened. "You've asked me to understand it only when you're the one being corrected. You packed Leah's room because you decided you had the right answer. It was unused space, not yours alone. We are married. There is no hers and mine every time a decision gets difficult. That rule seems to apply mostly to her things. You don't know anything about our marriage, not enough. Then stop pretending. I am." He laughed under his breath and looked toward the living room. "You enjoy this." "What? Being needed again?" The words found their target because I had already put the target there myself. Scott saw that. "Leah spent years trying to create boundaries with you," he said. "She finally leaves for reasons that have nothing to do with you, and suddenly you're carrying bins. keeping keys, evaluating where she sleeps. I didn't know she left. She didn't tell you. I'm aware. Have you asked yourself why? Yes. The speed of my answer threw him. I walked to the desk, not to open it, but to stand between him and the drawer. Have you asked yourself why she left with one suitcase instead of telling you she was going? That is between my wife and me. She isn't here. She will be. He said it quietly, not hopefully. Certainly. I studied him. Scott wasn't stupid. He wasn't a storybook tyrant who woke each morning wondering how to make Leah smaller. He believed in his own reasonableness the way some men believed in gravity. He had built an entire marriage around being the calmer person in the room, then made sure Leah had to get loud to be heard. What if she doesn't come back? I asked. His mouth flattened. She has done this before. She said she spent one night in a hotel. She told you that. Was it true? She leaves when conversations stop going her way. And then? Then she realizes a marriage requires compromise. Whose? He looked at me with something close to pity. You couldn't keep yours together? I don't think you're the person to advise me. The kitchen clock ticked twice. That's true, I said. He had not expected that either. I couldn't, I continued. For a long time, I thought being dependable meant I didn't have to be easy to live with. I was wrong. Scott glanced toward the front door. But my divorce doesn't make you right about Leah. I didn't come for your approval. You came for the key. Yes, you're not getting it. He moved toward the door, then stopped with his hand on the knob. If you really care about what Leah wants, he said, encourage her to talk to me without you sitting beside her. She hasn't asked me to sit beside her. You will find a reason. He left before I could answer. I watched his SUV pull away, then opened the desk drawer. The key lay beside the folded dish towel. The green shard made a hard shape underneath the fabric. I shut the drawer again. Leah called that evening. What did he say to you? No hello? Dad, how did you know he was here? He texted me that he made a good faith attempt to retrieve his house key and you refused. That's accurate if you ignore every noun. What happened? He asked for the key. I said you told me to keep it. Did you tell him where I'm staying? No. Did he ask? No. That quieted her. He said I was using this to make myself indispensable, I added. Leah exhaled. He said that to me too. He has efficient material. What did you say? That he was right about some things. Silence. Which things? She asked. That I correct too much. That I've crossed boundaries. That you didn't tell me you left. I didn't tell anybody except Tessa. Odessa figured it out. Odessa could figure out a submarine was missing by the water level. I smiled despite myself. Did he say, I'm coming back? She asked. Yes. Her breath changed, as if she had climbed one step in the dark and found there wasn't another. He keeps saying that. What do you say? Nothing. Good. You keep giving advice. I know. I didn't say stop. I waited. Tessa needs her room back by the end of next month, she said. Her sister is coming for a few weeks. That's fair. She feels terrible. That also sounds like Tessa. I looked at the apartment pages, the blue folder. I had forgotten it at her condo. Or, more accurately, abandoned it when she pointed out what it represented. I should have thrown them away, I said. One has an opening Wednesday. Which one? The place near my office. The 12-minute one. I remembered its clean website photographs and suspicious absence of any picture showing the bedroom window. Do you want me to come? Yes. The answer came so quickly I wondered if she regretted it. Okay. But you don't talk unless I ask you something. Can I say hello? You can say hello. What if they ask my name? Use judgment. That seems dangerous. Dad, I'll be quiet. Wednesday's leasing agent was a woman named Patty, who wore a purple blazer and spoke about square footage as if she had personally created it. The apartment was on the second floor above the laundry room. Very convenient, Patty said, as a dryer thumped below us. Leah walked through the living area slowly. The carpet was clean, but worn flat along the walls. The north-facing window looked directly at the brick side of the next building, close enough that I could have tossed a wrench into it. I kept my hands in my pockets. The light is softer in the afternoon, Patty said. It was 3:30. Leah opened the bedroom closet. Does the rent include water? There's a monthly utility package. How much? It varies. Between what and what? Patty's smile narrowed. Usually 70 to 110. Leah nodded and wrote it down. I noticed a yellow stain in the ceiling corner near the bathroom. The paint over it was fresh, but not fresh enough. A tiny brown bead had formed at the edge. I looked away. Leah walked into the bathroom, turned on the sink, and watched the drain. Patty said, "We have another applicant very interested." "Of course," Leah said. She came back into the bedroom and caught me looking at the ceiling. "What?" I said nothing. "Dad." "You told me not to talk. I'm asking." I pointed to the corner. Patty looked up. "That was repaired." "When?" Leah asked. "Before the last resident moved." "There's water on it now," I said. Patty stepped closer. "That may be old moisture." I took a folded tissue from my pocket and handed it to Leah. I did not touch the ceiling. She climbed onto the edge of the empty tub, pressed the tissue to the brown bead, and came down with a wet spot. Patty's smile vanished. "We'll look at another unit," Leah said. Outside, she stood beside my truck and studied the brochure. "I wanted that one to work," she said. "I know. You hated it before we got upstairs. The fountain was nice. There was no fountain. I may be thinking of Tessa's place." She folded the brochure in half. "I don't want to live somewhere. I'm afraid the ceiling will come down." Reasonable. I also don't want to wait for a perfect apartment that doesn't exist. Also reasonable. She looked at me. "What do you think I should do?" The answer rushed forward. I could have delivered it in 6 organized points. Instead, I asked, "Do you want my opinion, or do you want help sorting yours out?" Leah stared at me for a second. Then she opened the passenger door. "I don't know yet," she said. "Let's get coffee while I decide." The coffee shop was nearly empty except for a man working on a laptop and 2 women arguing quietly over whether a muffin counted as lunch. Leah ordered tea. I ordered coffee and a cinnamon roll, large enough to require its own building permit. We took a table near the window. She spread the apartment brochure flat, stared at it, then folded the water stain into the middle. "I don't want that one," she said. "Good. You said you'd wait for my opinion." "I did. I just gave it. Then good." She tore open a sugar packet and poured half into her tea. I keep thinking I'm going to make one decision and everything else will line up behind it. It won't. "I know." "Sorry." "No, that one was useful." I cut the cinnamon roll in half and pushed one piece toward her. She pulled off a corner but did not move the plate. "What would you do?" she asked. "About the apartment?" "About all of it. That's too large a question." "You usually like large questions? More places to install shelves. I'd start with what has an actual deadline. Tessa needs her room back next month. That matters. Scott wanting an answer today does not. He hasn't asked for an answer today. He will." She looked down at her tea. "He asked me to have dinner Sunday," she said. "Just us." "Do you want to?" "No." "Then don't. I'm not asking permission. I know." "You answered fast. You answered first." She blew across the tea even though the steam had faded. He said, "If I refuse to sit down with him, then I'm not separating. I'm punishing him." "What do you think?" "I think he can turn anything into a definition. If I leave, it's a pressure exit. If I don't answer, it's punishment. If I come back for clothes, it's an invasion. And if you sit down, then he'll explain what the dinner means." "That sounds tiring." "It is." The man at the laptop closed it, opened it again, and sighed. One of the women at the other table cut the muffin in half. Apparently it counted as lunch if divided. Leah said, "Do you remember when I called you from the grocery store parking lot?" "No." 2 years ago. Scott and I had a fight because I signed up for a Saturday pottery workshop without checking the calendar. I searched my memory and found a gray afternoon, rain on my garage windows, Leah's voice coming through the speaker while I sorted drill bits. "You said he had planned something," I said. "He had invited Dana and Marianne for brunch." "That's right." I said it felt like I needed permission to use my own Saturday. You said he was being controlling, and you told me not every disagreement was a hill to die on. I set down my fork. "You were standing in your garage," she continued. "I could hear you moving things around. I was sorting a drawer. I know." "Of course she did." "I wasn't listening," I said. "You were listening. You just thought the problem was how angry I was." I looked out the window. A delivery truck passed slowly, blocking the afternoon light. "I thought I was helping you calm down." "You were." I went home calmer. The truck moved on. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" I asked. "No." We sat with it. "I'm sorry," I said. Leah's expression remained careful. "I don't need you to apologize for every bad conversation we've ever had. This one seems relevant." "It is." "Then I'm sorry." She turned the paper cup between her palms. I used to call you after fights, she said. Then you'd tell me something practical, and I'd feel stupid for being upset. Scott loved that. Did he know you called? Sometimes. Once he said, even your father thinks you're overreacting. My first thought was that I had never said those words. The defense was so immediate I almost respected its efficiency. I didn't think you were overreacting, I said. You thought I was reacting wrong. That's fair. It also wasn't all you. I wanted you to tell me to stay because staying meant I hadn't made a terrible mistake. That's a lot to ask from a man sorting drill bits. She smiled faintly. You always say you can fix anything. I should update the slogan. Her phone vibrated against the table. She turned it over. A photograph filled the screen. Odessa had sent it. The blue reading chair sat on the grass beside the Vance's driveway. One rear leg was propped on the curb. Dana stood behind it with both hands on the back, and Scott was reaching for the seat cushion. Under the picture, Odessa had written, "Is this supposed to be going somewhere?" Leah was out of her chair before I had finished reading. I followed her to the truck. You don't have to come, she said. I'm driving. I can drive. You left your car at Tessa's. Right. She got in and called Odessa. The call went to speaker through the truck. Tell me they didn't put it out, Leah said. I asked what they were doing, Odessa replied. Wind brushed against her phone. Scott says it has mildew. It does not have mildew. That is what I told him. It has one coffee stain. And I know because you made me flip the cushion during book club. Where is it now? In my driveway. How did it get there? Gravity and indignation. I looked at Leah. Don't ask, Odessa said. My back is fine. Is Scott there? He went inside. Dana is sitting on the porch. We're 10 minutes away. I'll stand guard. You don't have to. Honey, I have been waiting 6 weeks for a useful assignment. The call ended. I kept my eyes on the road. She's going to hurt herself. She moved a refrigerator into her kitchen with 2 bath mats. That doesn't make me less concerned. It should make you more concerned for the chair. When we turned onto the block, Odessa was sitting in the blue chair in the middle of her driveway. Reggie lay at her feet with his chin on one paw, looking bored by the entire defense operation. Dana stood across the strip of grass, arms folded. I pulled in behind Odessa's car. Leah got out before I had fully stopped. What were you doing with my chair? Dana looked toward the Vance house. Moving it? To the curb? Scott said the back leg was soft. Leah crouched and pressed the rear leg with both hands. It's solid. I didn't check it. Did you check anything? Dana's face tightened. You don't get to treat me like I'm doing this to you. You were dragging my chair out. I was helping my brother move furniture from my room. It was in the living room. It was mine. It's a chair, Leah. Odessa leaned back in it, a comfortable one. Dana ignored her. Scott came out of the house carrying a spray bottle and a white cloth. He stopped when he saw my truck. You called him again, he said. Leah stood. Odessa called me. Scott looked at Odessa. She scratched Reggie behind one ear. Take it up with the neighborhood watch. There is no neighborhood watch, Scott said. That's what makes me so hard to remove. I went to the chair and bent to examine the leg. Leah did not object, which I took as permission. The wood was sound. A streak of something gray marked the lower fabric near the back. I rubbed it with my thumb. Dry dust came away. This is not mildew, I said. Scott held up the spray bottle. I was about to clean it. At the curb? Leah asked. I was making space in the living room. Dana moved the plant there, and the chair blocks the walkway. Then put the plant somewhere else. That plant was expensive. The absurdity of the sentence hung between us. Dana looked at the house. It's also ugly. Scott turned. You picked it? You sent me 3 links and said, choose one. I was trying to make you feel at home. By giving me a multiple choice plant? Can we stay on the subject? Leah laughed, not kindly. Scott stepped closer to her. I was moving the chair into the garage until we agreed what to do with it. Then, why was it at the curb? It had to pass the curb to get around your father's shelving unit. The garage shelves were along the back wall. There was no route from the living room to them that involved the street. I straightened. Scott saw my face. Don't. I didn't say anything. You don't have to. Apparently that runs in the family. Leah put a hand on the chair back. I'm taking it. I'm not going to have an argument over a chair. Good. I said we need an inventory. Write down blue chair. You're being deliberately dismissive. I'm taking my chair, Scott. He looked at her for a long moment. His voice changed when he spoke again. Come inside. No. 5 minutes. No. I made coffee. I don't want coffee. I got the kind you like. Leah's fingers tightened around the chair. Scott lowered his voice. I miss you. Dana looked away. Odessa stared down at Reggie. For the first time since I had met him, Scott sounded less than certain. The pain in his face was real. That was what made him difficult. He could wound Leah and miss her at the same time. I miss parts of you too, Leah said. Hope moved across his features too quickly. That isn't enough, she finished. His face closed. You're making permanent decisions in public, he said. I'm taking a chair. You know what I mean. No, I know what you want me to mean. She turned to me. Will it fit? In the truck? Yes. Then please help me. I lifted one side. Dana surprised me by taking the other before Scott could move. Together, we carried the chair to the truck. As we set it down, Dana said quietly, He told me you said I could have the studio. Leah looked at her. I didn't, she said. Dana nodded once. I know that now. Scott called her name from the porch. She went back without answering him. I tied the chair upright. Odessa insisted on wrapping the blue blanket from her porch around one arm so the rope would not rub. Before we left, Scott walked to Leah's window. Mom wants everyone for dinner next Sunday, he said. You, me, Dana, Martin. She thinks we need to clear this up before it gets worse. Leah stared forward. I told her you'd come, he added. She turned toward him. Why? Because refusing would tell everyone you've already decided. Leah looked at me, then at Odessa standing beside the mailbox, then back at the house where Dana had disappeared. No, she said. It would tell them you don't answer for me. Scott stepped away from the truck. As we pulled off, Leah watched him in the side mirror. You don't have to go to that dinner, I said. I know. Good. She looked back at the chair tied behind us. I think I'm going, she said. I did not ask why until we had carried the chair into Tessa's condo. It barely fit through the front door. We turned it sideways, removed the cushion, and discovered one brass caster caught on the threshold. Tessa stood in the hallway directing us with the confidence of someone who was not holding either end. Rotate left, she said. My left or yours? I asked. There is only one correct left. That's not how left works. Leah, trapped behind the chair, started laughing. Put it down before I lose a finger. We set it on its side. Tessa examined the chair. This thing is enormous. It looked normal in my living room, Leah said. Your living room was enormous. Mine was built for people without belongings. We got it into the spare room by moving Leah's bins into the hall. The chair took up most of the open floor between the bed and the stacked office boxes. But when Leah sat down, her shoulders relaxed. Tessa noticed. Fine, she said. The chair can stay. I can put it in storage. You can put yourself in storage. The chair stays. I leaned against the doorframe. Why are you going to dinner? Leah looked up at me. You waited almost 20 minutes. I'm improving. I'm going because Scott has already told everybody what this is. If I don't show up, my empty chair becomes proof. Proof of what? That I'm too emotional to talk, or too ashamed, or that you won't let me come. Tessa folded her arms. Nobody who has met Martin thinks he can stop you from going anywhere. Thank you, I said. That was not entirely a compliment. Leah rubbed the blue upholstery where the fabric had picked up gray dust. Scott's mother will make chicken. Dana will apologize for being caught in the middle. Scott will say he wants to move forward. Then they'll all wait for me to explain why I can't. You don't have to explain it to their satisfaction, I said. No, but I want to hear what he says when I'm in the room. Tessa sat on the edge of the bed. Do you want us there? He already invited Dad. Scott's mother invited me, I said. No, Scott told her to. How do you know? Because Mary Ann would call you herself. She handwrites thank you cards for grocery store flowers. That was true. Leah looked at Tessa. I don't want you there. Also true. Tessa, I'm agreeing. I'd throw a dinner roll at him. You would not. I'd imagine it aggressively. Leah turned to me. I do want you there. Okay, but not as backup. What am I? My father? That job has historically included backup. I need you to let me speak. I can do that. And if Scott says something wrong, don't correct every detail. That may exceed my training. I'm serious. So am I. Her expression softened, then grew uncertain. If I can't say it, Don't say it for me. All right. She looked at the chair arm under her hand. If I ask, then help. The terms were clearer than most contracts I had signed. I can do that, I said. Tessa snapped her fingers. Great. Now somebody explain how this chair is getting out next month. Leah looked at me. 2 people and 1 correct left, I said. The next apartment belonged to a 4-unit building over a florist and a tax preparation office. The florist's sign said, Ellen Stems, which sounded either cheerful or medically concerning. The leasing agent was the florist herself. Ellen was in her 50s, wore dirt under her fingernails, and did not pretend the apartment was better than it was. The floors slope, she told us at the bottom of the stairs. Not dangerously. Enough that round fruit will choose a direction. The apartment had 1 bedroom, a narrow kitchen, and radiators that knocked when the heat started. The bathroom tile was older than Leah. There was no dishwasher. The living room had 2 wide windows facing north over the shop awning. Leah stood in the light for a long time. You can paint, Ellen said. Nothing black. The previous tenant painted the bedroom black, including the ceiling. Took me 4 coats to make it look haunted in a normal way. Leah smiled. Laundry is in the basement, Ellen continued. 1 washer, 1 dryer, and the dryer lies about being finished. What's the catch? Leah asked. Street noise on weekday mornings. Florists start early. Tax people panic in April. The back stairs are ugly. We inspected the back stairs. They were ugly, but solid. Leah looked at me. Well, you asked me to be quiet. I'm asking now. The bathroom fan is weak. There's a small gap under the kitchen sink, but it looks old and dry. The windows stick. Can you fix the windows? If Ellen allows it. Ellen shrugged. If he breaks them, you pay. Fair, I said. Leah walked back into the living room and measured the wall with her arms extended. What? I asked. Pottery table. I did not tell her I could build one. She caught me not saying it. Don't hurt yourself, she said. I'm fine. On the sidewalk, she took an application from Ellen and slid it into her purse. I'm not deciding today, she said. I didn't ask. You were thinking. I'm permitted private thoughts. Under review. She drove herself back to Tessa's. I went home by way of the grocery store, bought too much food, and managed not to drop any of it at her condo. That evening, Leah sent me a screenshot. Scott had written, I found your old mug behind the coffee can, the one from Asheville. I made tea in it before I remembered you hate when I use your mugs. I miss all the stupid small things. I don't want us to become people who divide chairs and bowls. Come home and let's stop this. 22 minutes later. Your silence is unnecessarily cruel. You know I'm trying. I read the first message and, against my will, felt for him. I read the second and watched the first one change shape. I typed, Don't answer tonight, then deleted it. I wrote, Do you want to talk? Her reply came almost immediately. No, just wanted you to see the turn. I answered, I see it. Saturday morning, she asked for the spare key. I met her in Tessa's parking lot. She stood beside her car with 2 flattened furniture blankets in the trunk. Scott agreed I can get the wheel at 11, she said. He's going to be there. Do you want me inside? Yes. For the wheel. I handed her the key. She turned the wooden tag over in her palm. The sunflower paint was worn along the edges. I forgot I made this, she said. You were 25. I thought I was 26. You gave it to me after the pipe burst in your apartment. Before this house. That key wouldn't open this house. I moved the tag. She ran her thumb over Dad in faded marker. Scott said I wanted it back. He said, you wanted distance. I did. I know. Not like that. I know that too. She slipped the key into her jacket pocket. At the house, Scott opened the garage before we had a chance to use it. The pottery wheel stood near the driveway now, uncovered and cleaned. The power cord had been looped properly. Beside it were 3 taped boxes labeled Leah, Studio. Dana sat on the garage steps holding a roll of packing tape. I went through everything, she said. I separated my stuff. Leah opened the first box. Her brushes were wrapped in newspaper. The glazed container stood upright inside a plastic tub. Thank you, she said. Dana nodded without looking at her. Scott held a sheet of notebook paper on a clipboard. For the inventory, he said. Leah glanced at it. You made columns. I'm trying to keep this organized. Pottery wheel, she said. 3 boxes. The folding work table. Mine. We bought it together. I bought it at the flea market with Tessa. Scott looked at Tessa, though she was not there to confirm it. Fine, he said. Table. It leaned against the rear wall behind two bicycles. Martin from a week earlier would have started issuing instructions. I waited until Leah pointed. Can you take the legs? She asked. We loaded the table, then lifted the wheel. It was heavier than I remembered. Scott stepped forward as if to help, but Leah took the other side before he could. Dana watched us secure everything in the truck. Mom's expecting 6:30 tomorrow, she said. Next Sunday, Leah replied. Dana looked at Scott. He looked down at the clipboard. She moved it up. You didn't tell me. I was going to? When? We're telling you now. Leah laughed once. Of course. Dana peeled a strip of tape from the roll and stuck it to itself. Mom's worried. About me, about everybody. What did Scott tell her? That you've been overwhelmed, that you stopped sleeping, stopped doing pottery, and left during an argument. I stopped pottery because my studio became storage. Scott's pen pressed hard enough to leave a mark through the paper. Nobody stopped you. Leah looked at the boxes he had just inventoried. Dana said, He also told her Martin has been pushing you to get an apartment. I watched Leah's face. I brought apartment listings after she told me not to, I said. Scott lifted his eyes, surprised by the admission. It was wrong, I continued. She told me so. I put the folder away. Dana glanced at Scott. You said he signed her up for tours. I said he was arranging them. He came to one because I invited him, Leah said. Scott set the clipboard on the hood of his SUV. Can we not litigate every sentence? You're describing my life to people, Leah said. The sentences matter. He stepped closer. Then come tomorrow and describe it yourself. I will. His expression shifted. He had expected resistance, not agreement. 6:30, he said. We heard. Leah climbed into the truck. I returned the key to her through the open window. Keep it, she said. It's yours. So is the house. Scott was near enough to hear. I put the key in my pocket. On the drive to Tessa's, Leah stared straight ahead. Did I push you to stay with him? I asked. Sometimes. The answer was quiet and immediate. I waited. You made endurance sound noble, she said. Like leaving meant I hadn't tried hard enough. My hands tightened on the wheel. I thought marriage was work, I said. It is. But I was the only one clocking in. I let out a breath. At dinner, she said, if he tells them I left because I'm unstable, I need you not to act like you always knew he was wrong. I didn't. I know. I knew pieces. So did I. The wheel shifted softly against its straps behind us. What do you want me to say? I asked. The truth. That I thought you were overreacting? If it comes up, that won't help your case. She looked at me. I know, she said. That's why they might believe it. That was something my daughter would have said as a teenager, when she still believed truth had a clean edge. At Tessa's, we discovered the pottery wheel would fit through the front door, but not around the turn into the spare room without removing the door from its hinges. Tessa stood on one side of it, studying the problem. I know what you're thinking, she told me. I haven't said anything. You're looking at the hinge pins like they insulted you. I can have the door off in 30 seconds. No, 20. Martin. Leah touched the top of the wheel. Could it stay at your house? The question surprised me enough that I looked at her instead of the hinges. In the garage, she added. Just until I know about the apartment. Of course. I don't want you working on it. I won't. Or the table. I won't. The table wobbles. I remember. You're doing that thing with your mouth. What thing? The thing where you agree out loud and repair something in your head. Tessa pointed at her. That. He does that. I am standing right here. We know, they said together. We drove to my house and unloaded the wheel into the garage. I cleared a place beside my workbench while Leah unfastened the boxes. The folding table went against the wall. It did wobble. I faced it toward the wall so I would not have to watch. Leah put the 3 boxes beneath the table, then removed the canvas apron from the top one. She shook it out. Dried clay marked the front in pale handprints and streaks. The red ties were tangled. You made that your first year, I said. I bought it. You replaced the ties. She looked at them. You remember that? You called because the sewing machine jammed. You drove over. You had the needle threaded wrong. There it is. What? The correction. I leaned against the workbench. You did have it threaded wrong. I know. I was asking if you remembered the apron, not whether I had used a machine correctly. Then yes. I remember the apron. She smoothed it across the wheel. I used to think you remembered objects better than people, she said. That's not fair. No? No. Objects are easier to discuss. She glanced at me, then laughed softly. That may be the most honest thing you've ever said. Put it on my headstone. You're not getting a headstone that says, objects were easier. Too late. I've decided. We went inside, I offered coffee, and she said yes before I could offer to make it the way she liked. She sat at my kitchen table with the apartment application, while I stood at the counter pretending not to read over her shoulder. Ellen wanted employment history, references, and an explanation for the gap between Leah's current address and the one on her license. What do I write? She asked. What's true? Temporarily separated. That seems enough. It sounds like I'm a weather system. You could write staying with friend. That sounds like I got evicted. Then temporarily separated. She printed the words carefully. The application asked for an emergency contact. Her pen stopped. I turned away and opened the refrigerator for no reason. Dad. Yes? Would you mind? No, I mean, would it become a thing? I closed the refrigerator. What kind of thing? If I put you down, I'll answer if they call. That isn't what I asked. I looked at her. No, it won't become a thing. She wrote my name. The smallness of it nearly undid me. I poured coffee into a mug and spilled some beside the sink. Leah pretended not to see. When she finished, she took a picture of each page and emailed them to Ellen. Then she sat with her hands around the mug. I should go, she said. Probably. Neither of us moved. Her eyes traveled to the bookcase in the living room. The photograph from their wedding was still there, untouched by the crack that ran across the copy in her bin at Tessa's. You still have that one, she said. I have several. Scott hates that picture. I know. He says his eyes are half closed. They are. He wanted you to take it down. He mentioned it. You told him he could close his eyes the rest of the way. That sounds like me. She smiled, then looked toward the dining table. Do you remember the housewarming? She asked. I did. Their house had been full of people and not enough chairs. I had spent 2 weekends helping install the dining room trim, and most of that Saturday repairing a cabinet door Scott had leaned against before the glue set. When guests arrived, Scott put a drink in my hand and introduced me to 3 coworkers as their free maintenance plan. I had bowed, Leah had laughed. Later, when everyone sat down, there were 11 chairs at the long table and 12 people. Scott said, Martin won't mind the kitchen. He's up and down anyway. I ate on a folding chair beside the counter, close enough to hear every story, and far enough that nobody passed me bread. I remember, I said. You left early. I had a headache. You never get headaches. Then I had my first. She rubbed one thumb against the side of her mug. I knew you were hurt, she said. I looked at the wedding photograph. Why didn't you say anything? She asked. What would I have said? Make room for me? Yes. I thought if I had to ask, it didn't count. Her face tightened. I also thought being useful had earned me a place, I said. That wasn't a fair bargain, because nobody knew I was making it. I should have known. You should have noticed. That's different. I did notice. The refrigerator motor started behind us. I laughed because Scott and I had fought about you that morning, she said. He said every time you fixed something, I became your little girl again. He said people would think we couldn't run our own house. So you called me the maintenance plan first? No, he did. But I laughed so he would know I was on his side. I nodded. She blinked quickly. That sounds terrible. It felt terrible. I'm sorry. I could have made it easy for her. I could have said it was years ago. I had forgotten. It did not matter. That would have been another repair. Thank you, I said. She looked down. I kept helping after that, I added. I know. That part was my choice. I know that too. We sat quietly until her phone buzzed. Marianne had sent a message confirming dinner for 6:30 and reminding her that nobody wanted a confrontation. Leah held the screen toward me. Nothing encourages relaxation like being warned not to confront anyone, I said. She made pecan pie. How do you know? She included a picture. Emotional blackmail with crust. She knows what she's doing. Marianne's house sat 20 minutes east of mine in a neighborhood where every mailbox had a brick column and every lawn seemed to be cut by the same person. Leah arrived in her own car the following evening. I had offered to pick her up, and she had declined. She wanted a way to leave that did not depend on anyone else. I respected that. I also parked where she could not be boxed in. Marianne opened the door before we rang. Her silver blonde hair was pulled back, and she wore a navy apron over cream slacks. "Thank you for coming," she said, first to Leah and then to me. She hugged Leah carefully. Leah returned it with one arm. The house smelled like roast chicken, rosemary, and furniture polish. A stack of unopened mail sat perfectly square on the entry table. Scott was in the living room with Dana. He stood when we entered. "You look good," he told Leah. "So do you." He did. Dark sweater, pressed pants, no tie. The uniform of reasonable sorrow. Dana wore a rust-colored dress and had taken unusual care with her hair. She hugged Leah before Leah could decide whether to offer. The hug was brief and stiff. "I packed the rest of the studio things," Dana said. "Thank you. You already said that. I still mean it." Marianne reached for my coat. "Martin, I'll keep it." Her hand paused, then lowered. Of course, no one had poured drinks yet, which meant the conversation was officially not happening. Scott asked whether I had watched the game. Dana commented on the weather. Leah examined a framed photograph of Marianne at a beach, though I knew she had seen it many times. In the dining room, the table was set for 5. Marianne had used cloth napkins and the good plates with the silver rim. The pecan pie waited on the sideboard beneath a glass cover. 5 chairs. I counted twice. Scott noticed. "I told Mom Tessa wasn't coming," he said. "I knew that," Leah replied. I had not realized how strongly I expected a 6th person, someone neutral perhaps, or simply enough furniture to make the room feel less deliberate. Marianne brought in the chicken. "Sit anywhere," she said, though place cards had been tucked against the water glasses. Leah's name was beside Scott's. She picked up the card and moved it across the table next to mine. Marianne's serving fork stopped over the platter. "There," Leah said. "Now I've made my first permanent decision in public." Dana looked down to hide a smile. Scott pulled out his own chair. "I was hoping we could avoid jokes. I wasn't joking." Marianne put the fork down. "Can we please eat before anything gets cold?" For 12 minutes, we did. The chicken was tender. The potatoes had too much salt. Dana told a story about a woman who had interviewed her for a job while answering personal texts. Marianne asked about the dental practice. Leah described a new scheduling system and did not mention that she was living with a coworker. Scott refilled her water without asking. She watched him do it. When the plates were half empty, Marianne set down her knife. "I think we all know why we're here." "To eat chicken," Dana said. "Dana, what?" "You said before anything got cold." Scott folded his napkin beside his plate. "I asked Mom to bring us together because private attempts to communicate have failed," he said, "and because outside involvement has made an already painful situation harder." His eyes moved to me. Leah's fork rested quietly against her plate. There it was. Not her studio, not the boxes, not the night she left. "Me," Scott continued. "I think before Leah and I can discuss our marriage honestly, we need to acknowledge the role Martin has played in keeping us from resolving this ourselves." Everyone looked at me. I looked at Leah. She gave the smallest shake of her head. "Not yet." I kept my fork beside my plate. Scott waited, perhaps expecting the effort of silence to become too much for me. When it didn't, he turned to Leah. "Your father has never respected our marriage," he said. "He entered our home without permission, undermined decisions we made together, and treated every ordinary problem as proof you needed him. Now, during a temporary separation, he has refused to return my key, removed property from the house, and arranged apartments before you and I had a chance to talk." Marianne's eyes moved to Leah. "Is that true?" "Some of it." Scott blinked. Leah folded her hands in her lap. "Dad has come into the house without calling. He brought apartment listings after I told him not to. He bought storage bins, too." Dana glanced at me. "6, I said. Leah looked over. "Sorry." "You returned 4, she continued. "He was wrong. I told him. He admitted it." Scott gave a restrained laugh. "And that makes it fine?" "No." "Then why are we acting like his behavior is some charming personality flaw? We aren't. You moved out, and within days he had you touring apartments. I moved out 5.5 weeks before he knew." The room changed. Marianne looked at Scott. "What?" "My father found out last Friday," Leah said, "from Odessa." Dana's fork touched her plate. "You said Martin was helping her plan it." "I said his influence contributed," Scott replied. "You said he had been waiting for a chance to get her out of the house." I said he never supported the marriage. That isn't the same thing, Marianne said. Scott turned toward her. Mom, please don't get distracted by dates. Dates matter, Leah said. You told Dad I wanted the spare key back so he wouldn't knock and discover I'd been gone. I told him you wanted a boundary you have asked for repeatedly. I never asked you to call him. No, because you were refusing to communicate with anyone. I was talking to Tessa. Tessa is not family. She knew where I was. Marianne set her napkin on the table. Scott, did you know Leah hadn't told Martin? Yes. And you let him believe she was still living at the house? I respected her privacy. Leah's chair creaked as she leaned back. You put my planters at the curb. We're back to pottery. No, we're back to you, deciding privacy means nobody hears what you did. Scott's mouth tightened. What exactly did I do, Leah? I gave my sister a place to stay. I moved unused supplies out of a guest room. You responded by leaving in the middle of the night. It wasn't a guest room, it had become storage. Because every time I tried to use it, you put something else in there. That isn't true. Your exercise bike. For one winter, the folding banquet tables. We needed somewhere dry. Dana's old suitcases. Dana looked at him. You told me Leah said I could keep those there. Scott rubbed 2 fingers against his temple. This is pointless. Every household has clutter. The clutter was always mine, Leah said. Even when it belonged to you. Marianne reached for her water, then seemed to reconsider. Scott's voice softened. You stopped making pottery. I did not stop you. You scheduled over every Saturday workshop. You invited people for brunch and told them I'd cook. You complained about the clay smell. You stacked boxes in front of the wheel. Then you pointed at the room and said, see, you never use it. I wanted a life with you. You wanted my life available. Dana looked down at her plate. Scott turned to me. And you're enjoying every second of this. Leah answered before I could. He hasn't said anything. He doesn't have to. This is what he wanted. Dad didn't know I was gone. He knew we were struggling. So did you. I was trying to fix it. No, you were trying to win it quietly. Scott pushed his plate away. What does that even mean? It means every fight ended when I got too tired to keep defining words. Marianne held up one hand. Could we slow down? Leah, nobody is asking you to defend every disagreement in your marriage. That's exactly what this dinner is. No, Marianne said. This is supposed to help us understand why you left. I left because Scott and Dana packed my studio while I was at work. Dana flinched. I didn't know you hadn't agreed, she said. I believe you. I asked him twice. Scott looked at her. You asked if Leah would mind, and you said she'd get over it once she saw how well the room worked. Marianne's head turned slowly toward him. Scott stared at Dana. That is not what I said. It is. You were panicking. I was trying to reassure you. You also said Leah would handle groceries and the household schedule until I got back on my feet. Leah's expression barely changed, but I saw her grip the cloth napkin. When? She asked. The night I moved in, Dana said. I told him I didn't want to be another burden. He said you already did all that stuff, and one more person wouldn't matter. Scott looked around the table as if somebody had rearranged the exits. That was a casual conversation, he said. Dana was upset. There it is again, Leah said. What? Upset. The condition that makes everything a woman remembers inadmissible. Marianne's water glass struck the table harder than she intended. Scott told me you offered Dana the room, she said to Leah. I did not. He said you had reservations about timing, but you were happy to help. I found out 2 days before she moved in. Dana stared at Scott. I needed an answer, he said. You kept saying we should discuss it. That was my answer until we discussed it. You cannot postpone every difficult decision, and you cannot make my silence agree with you. He turned toward Marianne. She is presenting this as if I forced someone into our home. Dana had nowhere to go. I could have stayed with Renee, Dana said. Scott looked at her. You said Renee's place was too small. It was. It was still an option. I was trying to help you. The sentence floated there, familiar enough that Leah and I looked at each other. Scott saw it. Oh, that's rich, he said. You two have spent a week turning me into a monster, and now you're bonding over my use of the word help. No one called you a monster, Leah said. You don't have to. That seems to be doing a lot of work for you tonight. He stood, then seemed to realize standing made him look less calm. He placed both hands on the back of his chair. I have apologized for the studio, he said. I offered to restore it exactly the way it was. I offered counseling. I offered to have Dana move out. Leah has refused every solution because her father is finally telling her what she wanted to hear. Leah looked at me. This time she did not shake her head. Dad, she said, tell them about the grocery store. Scott frowned. Marianne waited. I wiped my mouth, buying a few seconds I did not need. Leah called me 2 years ago after an argument, I said. She said she felt like she needed Scott's permission to attend a pottery workshop. I told her not every disagreement was a hill to die on. Scott's expression eased. I said things like that often, I continued. I told her marriage took work. I told her to calm down before she made decisions. I made endurance sound like maturity. Scott sat slowly. Marianne asked, why? Because I thought that was wisdom. And because if Leah stayed married, I didn't have to look too hard at why my own marriage failed. Leah's eyes remained on me. After my divorce, I used being helpful to keep her close, I said. I showed up with tools instead of asking if she wanted company. Then I got hurt when she accepted the work and didn't give me the place in her life I thought I had earned. Scott nodded once. Exactly. I looked at him. I'm not finished. His face went still. I helped teach Leah to doubt her own anger. I also made it easier for you to describe her relationship with me as a problem you could solve for her. That is mine. I'm sorry, Leah. She looked down at her folded hands. I'm not asking you to forgive me tonight, I added. I'm not asking you for anything. The only sound in the room was the refrigerator humming in Marianne's kitchen. Scott broke it. So, you admit your involvement has been unhealthy? Yes. Then you understand why I'm asking you to step back. No. His eyebrows lifted. My failures don't make your decisions reasonable, I said. They don't explain why you lied to Dana or your mother or me, and they're not why Leah left. I know that because I wasn't there. Scott looked at Leah. He has you exactly where he wants you, depending on him again. Leah breathed in. I used him too, she said. I called when things broke. I laughed when you called him our free maintenance plan because I wanted you to know I was on your side. I let him eat in the kitchen after he spent 2 days helping with our housewarming because there wasn't room at the table. I treated his work like love and his loneliness like an inconvenience. I stared at the silver rim of my plate. I'm ashamed of that, she said. I apologized to him. It doesn't mean I move in with him. It doesn't mean he gets to decide where I live. It means I can admit what I did without demanding that he erase it for me. She looked across the table at Scott. That is what accountability sounds like. His face had gone pale. I have apologized, he said. You say you're sorry I was upset. Then you explain why I shouldn't have been. I am trying to save our marriage. You're trying to restore the arrangement. I love you. I believe you. The answer hurt him more than denial would have. Then come home, he said. No. Why? Her voice stayed level. I didn't move out because I couldn't keep a marriage. I moved because I was the only one keeping it. Marianne closed her eyes. Dana's hand went to her mouth. Scott looked at Leah as if she had spoken in a language he understood but refused to recognize. You made your choice before you came here, he said. I made it while I was still there. It just took me too long to pack. So this dinner was a performance. No, it was the first time I got to hear what you'd been telling everyone. She pushed back her chair. I'll contact you about the rest of my things. I'm taking the apartment over the florist if my application is approved. Dad came to one viewing because I asked. He is not arranging my life. Marianne stood. Leah, wait. I'm not angry with you. I would understand if you were. Leah picked up her purse. Would you? Marianne had no answer. Dana rose too. I'm going back to the house tonight, but I'll be out by Friday. Scott turned. Dana, don't make decisions because of this. She gave him a tired look. You don't hear yourself at all. The pecan pie remained beneath its glass cover. In the entryway, Marianne helped Leah with her coat. Her hands shook at the collar. I didn't know, she whispered. Leah buttoned the coat. You knew I left. You only asked Scott why. Marianne's face crumpled, but Leah hugged her before the apology could become another task. Outside, the air was cold enough to make our breath visible. I stopped beside my truck. Leah's car was 3 spaces down. She stood between them with her keys in one hand. You told the truth, she said. You asked me to. It made you look bad. It was mine. Her eyes filled, but she blinked it away. Behind us, Marianne's front door opened. Scott came onto the porch. Leah. She turned. "If you leave now," he said, "there is no coming back from this." Leah looked at him for a long moment. Then she opened her car door. "That's why I'm leaving," she said. Scott stayed on the porch while Leah's taillights disappeared at the end of the street. I opened my truck door. "You got what you wanted," he said. I turned back. Marianne stood behind him in the entryway, one hand on the doorframe. Dana was nowhere in sight. "What do you think I wanted?" I asked. "My daughter back, me out." Leah never stopped being my daughter. "You know what I mean. I wanted a seat at the table, Scott. I didn't want your chair empty." He looked toward the road where Leah had gone. "You've hated me for years." "No. You made that clear. I disliked you for years. Hate takes more energy." Under different circumstances, Scott might have smiled. Instead, he came down one step. "She will regret this." "Maybe." His face tightened. "You're supposed to tell me she won't. I don't know what she'll regret. You think she can build a life in some apartment over a flower shop, sleeping in a coworker's spare room, carrying broken bowls around?" I thought about the green shard in my drawer. "Probably," I said. "She couldn't even commit to pottery. That seems important to you. She leaves things, classes, jobs, friendships. She gets excited, then loses interest, and I'm the one who makes sure the bills are paid and the house keeps running. You may be right about some of that." The answer stopped him. "Leah can be indecisive," I said. "She avoids conversations until they become emergencies. She asks people to guess what she needs, then gets hurt when they guess wrong. You married a whole person, not a case you were assigned to manage." Scott came down the second step. "And you think one honest speech makes you Father of the Year? No. I think it made me honest for 5 minutes. You're enjoying your redemption." "Not especially." Marianne said his name quietly. He ignored her. "When she gets tired of you correcting her, where will she go?" "I hope wherever she wants." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." I climbed into the truck. Scott stood beside the open door. For the first time, he looked less angry than lost. "I do love her," he said. "I know." "Then why isn't anybody helping me?" I rested one hand on the steering wheel. "Maybe because every kind of help you'll accept ends with Leah coming home." His expression closed again. I pulled the door shut. By the time I reached my street, my phone had vibrated twice. I waited until I parked to look. The first message was from Leah, home. The second arrived while I was reading it. "Ellen approved me. I got the apartment." I typed 3 different responses. The first offered my truck. The second asked when she wanted to move. The third listed questions about the deposit, the radiators, and renter's insurance. I erased them all. "Congratulations." "How do you feel?" 3 dots appeared, vanished, then came back. "Terrified," I wrote. "That makes sense." A minute passed, also relieved. "That makes sense too." Another pause. "Can you help me move next Saturday?" "Yes." "Bring tools." I stared at the words. "All of them?" "Don't get emotional." I laughed alone in the truck. The week that followed had the uncomfortable quiet of a room after someone drops a plate. Nobody knew which pieces were safe to touch. Dana left Scott's house on Thursday, a day earlier than she had promised. She moved in with her friend Renee and sent Leah a photograph of 2 suitcases, 3 boxes, and a lamp crammed into the back of a hatchback. "Made it fit without anyone inventorying me," she wrote. Leah showed me the message but did not tell me what she answered. Marianne called Leah twice and left 1 voicemail. She did not call me. According to Leah, the voicemail began with an apology, wandered into an explanation of how hard Scott had worked to hold the family together, then returned to an apology before ending with a request to have lunch. "Are you going?" I asked. "Maybe." I waited. She narrowed her eyes. "You're becoming unsettling. I'm minding my business. You look like you're holding your breath. I may need medical attention." Scott's messages changed by the hour. In the morning, he sent photographs of sunlight in their kitchen and asked whether she remembered their first breakfast there. At noon, he told her the apartment was an impulsive financial mistake. At 3, he said he had made an appointment with a marriage counselor. At 6, he accused her of punishing Marianne. Before bed, he sent a single heart. Leah answered only once. "I will be at the house Saturday at 10 for the remaining items. Dad and Tessa will help. Please have the driveway clear." Scott replied, "Of course. I will make this as easy as possible, despite everything." Tessa read it over Leah's shoulder. He should embroider that on a pillow, she said. Saturday morning, the driveway was clear. So was the studio. Scott had removed the bed, Dana's cosmetics, and the 3 unfinished pots. He had swept the floor, wiped the shelves, and placed a new unopened bag of clay on the work table. Leah's old desk lamp stood in the corner, switched on despite the broad daylight coming through the north windows. I stopped in the doorway behind her. Scott stood near the hall. I said I would restore it. Leah walked to the shelves and ran one finger through a faint circle left by the base of Dana's crooked pot. Where are Dana's pieces? She took them. Good. I bought the same clay. I see that. The room can be yours again. She looked around. It resembled the studio I remembered. That was the strange part. The shelves were clear. The wheel-shaped space remained near the window. Her apron could have hung from the hook beside the closet. If we brought the boxes back from my garage, the previous 6 weeks might look like something that had happened to somebody else. Scott mistook her silence for reconsideration. We could reset, he said. Not pretend nothing happened. Start differently. Tessa waited in the living room with the moving blankets. She looked at the floor, giving them what privacy a hallway could provide. Leah touched the new bag of clay. You always do this beautifully, she said. Scott's face softened. Do what? Put things back after I break. His expression changed. You left. After you packed the room. I put it back. You put the room back. You still think the room was the whole thing? I know it wasn't. What else was it? He looked toward me. Leah followed his gaze, then turned to us. Can you give us a minute? Yes, I said. Tessa and I went outside. We began loading boxes from the garage. Most had been stacked by the door. Scott's inventory sheet was taped to the top one. He had listed 23 items, including assorted decorative bowls and female winter clothing. Tessa read over my shoulder. Female winter clothing, she said. As opposed to the masculine coats that roam the woods. I wouldn't rule it out. We loaded the blue chair's matching footstool, 2 floor lamps, books, a chest of drawers, and 3 boxes from the kitchen. The dining table remained. It was theirs, regardless of who had carried it inside or repaired the scratches. Near the rear wall, I found Leah's framed college diploma behind a stack of flattened shipping boxes. I held it up. Take, Tessa said. I'm not deciding. Fine. Ask. Before I could, Leah came into the garage. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. Take it. I wrapped the frame in a blanket. Where's Scott? Tessa asked. Kitchen. What happened? He apologized. Tessa looked surprised. Without saying if, Leah added. Without telling me what I did first. That's something, I said. It is. She pressed her lips together. I hate that it's something. You're allowed. Am I also allowed to feel bad for him? Yes. And still leave? Yes. She looked at me. Those answers came fast. I've had a week. Scott appeared in the garage doorway holding 2 keys on Leah's old ceramic key ring. One opened the front door. The other was for the side entrance. You forgot these, he said. Leah took them. His eyes moved to the framed diploma in my hands. I would have brought that in. She did not answer. He turned to me. Do you have the spare? I looked at Leah. Dad. I took the sunflower key from my pocket and placed it in her palm. She held all 3 keys together. They made a small, bright sound. Scott opened his hand, expecting them. Leah did not give them to him. I'll leave them inside when we're finished, she said. I'm standing here. I know. He looked hurt by the distinction. We made 4 trips between the house and our vehicles. Scott stayed out of the way. Once, while I carried a box of cookbooks, I saw him sitting alone at the dining table with both hands around an untouched mug. When the last drawer had been checked, Leah walked through the house by herself. I waited on the porch. She was inside for nearly 10 minutes. When she came out, she closed the door without testing whether it had locked behind her. The keys, Scott called from somewhere inside. On the kitchen island, she said through the door. He did not open it. Odessa came across the yard carrying one of the blue planters. The crack down its side had been wrapped with 2 wide bands of silver duct tape. I know this is ugly, she said, but it holds dirt. Leah accepted the pot with both hands. It's perfect. I have the other one. Reggie has become attached. Keep it. Odessa's eyes filled. He does look handsome beside it. They hugged. I loaded the repaired planter into Leah's car, wedged between 2 boxes so it would not tip. The apartment over the florist looked smaller once we filled it with her life. The chest of drawers blocked half the bedroom. The blue chair barely cleared the radiator. Boxes formed an uneven wall along the kitchen. Tessa opened a window and leaned out over the florist's striped awning. "It smells like eucalyptus," she said. "It smells like exhaust," I told her. "You have no poetry." We're above a tax office. Ellen came up with 3 spare rolls of toilet paper and warned us not to run the microwave and toaster on the same outlet. Then she returned downstairs to finish a funeral arrangement, leaving behind a trail of rosemary scent. We brought the pottery wheel up last. The back stairs complained under every step. Leah walked backward above me, taking most of the weight. At the landing, the wheel bumped the rail. "Stop," she said. I stopped. "Rotate left, my left or yours?" She laughed so hard she had to set her end down. When we finally placed the wheel beneath the north windows, the afternoon light fell across its blue casing. Leah stood beside it, breathing hard. "The folding table," she said. "It's still in my garage." "I know." "Do you want it?" She looked at the wall, then at the wheel. "No." I waited. "I want a real table," she said. "One that fits here." I kept my face neutral. "You're doing the mouth thing," she said. "What thing?" She pulled a tape measure from the toolbox she had specifically ordered me to bring. "Will you help me build it?" "Yes." "With me." I took the other end of the tape. "With you," I said. The wall measured 92 inches from the radiator pipe to the corner. Leah wanted the table 60 inches long, 30 deep, and high enough that she could work standing without bending her back. "That's too high for the wheel," I said. "The wheel isn't going under it. Where will it go?" "Where it is. That blocks half the window. I like it there. Then the table should be 54 inches. Why?" "So you can move around the wheel. I can move around it now, without furniture." She let the tape measure retract hard enough to slap my knuckles. "You asked me to help build your table," I said. "I did not ask you to replace my measurements with better ones." "They are better. They're yours." We had been in the apartment 3 hours, and I had already forgotten every insight I had gained over the previous month. I put the pencil down. 60 by 30, I said. "You can disagree? I do. You're doing the martyr voice. I don't have a martyr voice. You absolutely have a martyr voice. It sounds like a man accepting the wrong size table on behalf of his country." I laughed despite myself. Leah leaned against the wall. "Tell me why 54 is better, then let me decide." So I did. I showed her the turning radius around the wheel and the space required to pull the blue chair away from the radiator. She listened, measured again, and drew a new rectangle on the paper. 57, she said. "That's not a standard size. Nothing in this apartment is standard. 57 it is. We bought birch plywood for the top and maple for the frame. I suggested building it in my garage, where I had everything we needed. Leah wanted to use River Street Makers, a cooperative workshop 3 blocks from her office. She needed their kiln for pottery, and members could reserve the woodshop by the hour. The building had once been an auto parts warehouse. The front half held pottery wheels, long stained tables, and metal shelves crowded with pieces waiting to be fired. The rear woodshop contained 2 table saws, a planer, a wall of clamps, and a handwritten sign above the dust collector. "If you don't know, ask. If you do know, ask anyway." A man named Calvin Reed checked us in. He was 71, narrow as a fence post, and wore safety glasses on top of his head while searching for them. "You two worked together before?" he asked. "She threaded a sewing machine wrong once," I said. Leah looked at him. "This is what I'm dealing with," Calvin nodded solemnly. "My condolences." We spent 4 Saturday mornings building the table. On the first, I redrew Leah's lower shelf because I thought her version would rack under weight. She found my drawing beneath the lumber list. "You changed it." I reinforced it. "You changed it without asking." "I was going to show you." "When?" "Before we cut anything." "That is technically before. It is not the same as asking." Calvin, sanding a stool at the next bench, turned up the radio. I looked at my drawing. It was stronger. It was also not mine to choose. "We can use yours," I said. "I want to understand what's wrong with mine. Nothing is wrong with it if we add corner braces." "Then show me corner braces." I did. She chose 2 instead of 4. The table remained standing. On the second Saturday, Leah cut one maple rail 3/8 of an inch short. She stared at the gap. waiting for me to say something. I did not. You saw it, she said. Yes. How bad? Repairable. With what? I showed her how to adjust the opposite rail and recenter the base. She made the corrections herself. You're enjoying this, she said. A little. Because I cut it wrong? Because you asked. By the third week, Calvin had stopped pretending not to listen to us. He invited me to the Thursday open bench where members worked on their own projects and ordered dinner from the diner across the street. I'm not a member, I said. You have used my clamps 12 times. I returned them. That isn't the qualification. Leah kept sanding. Go, she said. You don't need me here Thursday? I'm not here Thursday. I meant generally. I know what you meant. Calvin found his safety glasses on his head and lowered them onto his nose. 7 o'clock. The meatloaf is terrible, but it's consistently terrible. I went. Nobody needed a father. Nobody knew I was Leah's father until Calvin mentioned the table. Nia Brooks, who built cabinets for restaurants, argued with me about drawer slides. A retired stage carpenter named Owen showed photographs of a rocking chair he had been shaping for 6 months and refused every suggestion that might help him finish sooner. At 8:30, the diner sent over 5 meatloaf dinners and 1 salad nobody admitted ordering. I stayed until 10. When I got home, there were no missed calls. The house was quiet. It still felt lonely. It just no longer felt like an emergency. The green bowl piece remained in my desk drawer until the day we finished the table. I brought it to Leah's apartment wrapped in the same dish towel. She unfolded it on the new birch surface. I forgot you had this, she said. You asked me to keep it, I know. Do you want me to take it back? She traced the broken edge with one finger. No. She placed it on the windowsill beside the duct-taped blue planter. The planter held a rosemary plant Ellen had given her after over-ordering herbs for a wedding. The curved shard stood upright in the dirt. Does that mean something? I asked. It means I didn't know where else to put it. Fair. Her separation from Scott did not become clean simply because she had said the right words at dinner. She missed him. She missed his coffee, his hand at the small of her back in crowded rooms, the way he remembered to warm her side of the car before she got in. Some mornings she woke above the florist, heard delivery vans below, and wanted the old bedroom with its familiar ceiling. Scott attended the counseling appointment alone. He told Leah afterward that the counselor agreed they had developed unhealthy patterns. When she asked which patterns were his, he said that question proved she was still focused on blame. 2 days later, he apologized for saying it. Leah met him once at a restaurant halfway between the house and her apartment. She did not ask me to come. I did not circle the parking lot or call at a strategic time. She phoned me the next evening. He cried, she said. I sat at my kitchen table with an unfinished bowl of soup. How was that? Awful. Did you? After I left, I waited. He said he understands now. He said he'll change everything. Do you believe him? I believe he means it. That wasn't my question. I know. The radiator in her apartment knocked through the phone. I told him I'm not coming home, she said. I told him if he changes, it has to be for a life that doesn't have me as the reward. That sounds hard. It was. Do you want me to say I'm proud of you? No? All right. A pause. Maybe later, she said. Marianne had lunch with Leah 3 times. The first 2 meals ended badly. Marianne apologized, then defended Scott, then apologized for defending him. By the third, she managed to ask Leah what the marriage had felt like and listened through the answer. Dana found a job managing inventory for a catering supplier, which Tessa called cosmic sarcasm. She and Leah were not suddenly close. They exchanged occasional messages. Dana returned a trimming tool she found in her purse and admitted the crooked pot had cracked before it reached Renee's apartment. Scott remained in the house. Without Leah, there was no one to remember Marianne's prescription pickup, organize Dana's job leads, replace coffee before it ran out, or make a guest room look ready 10 minutes before company arrived. He learned those tasks, or let them go undone. Marianne stopped translating his anger into concern. Dana stopped treating his decisions as rescue. Nothing collapsed spectacularly. The gutters still drained badly. The artificial plant remained in the living room. The kitchen got quiet. Leah and I did not become the people we had imagined we were before any of this happened. She still called me when her bathroom faucet began dripping. Do you want me to listen to it or fix it? I asked. Fix it. Just checking. I replaced the worn cartridge, then found the kitchen window still sticking. I did not touch it. She noticed me noticing. "You can fix that too," she said. "I have dinner plans." "With who?" "Calvin and Naya." She stared at me. "You're choosing friends over a window? It'll still be broken Tuesday." She smiled slowly. "Look at you." I fixed it Tuesday because she asked. She came to my house for dinner twice a month, not every week. Sometimes she canceled. I learned not to turn disappointment into a question about whether something was wrong. The first time she canceled because she was tired, I said, "All right, rest." Then I spent 20 minutes wanting credit for saying it correctly. I did not request any. At River Street, Leah began making pottery again. Her first finished piece was a wide gray bowl with a rim that dipped on one side. She brought it to my house in a cardboard box. "It's lopsided," I said. "It's supposed to be. I've heard that before." She put it on my kitchen table and filled it with clementines. The uneven rim made two roll together at the low point. I did not ask whether the bowl was for me. It remained there. By spring, the apartment had settled around her. The blue chair fit once we shifted the wheel 6 inches from the window. Her grandmother's yellow bowl held mail on the kitchen counter. The duct tape planter produced more rosemary than one person could reasonably use. The table carried bags of clay, glaze jars, and the permanent scars of work. Leah's hair was tied back the afternoon she handed me a key. We were standing in her kitchen. I had come for coffee, not a repair. A plain white tag hung from the new brass key by a metal ring. "What's this?" I asked. "You know what a key is. I have suspicions. I'm going to Asheville for 4 days next month. Tessa can water the plants, but she lives across town. You have one plant. I may acquire another." I held the key without putting it on my ring. Leah looked at me. "What? What do you want me to use it for?" Her expression changed. "Emergencies," she said. "What counts? Water, where water shouldn't be. Smoke. Ellen calls and says something's wrong. Being in the neighborhood? No. Groceries that need refrigeration? Leave them with Ellen. Window sticking? Call me. Plants? When I ask, I nodded. She took a marker from the pottery table and handed it to me. I wrote "call first" on the white tag. "You can keep it," she said. "I know. I mean it. I know that too." I attached it to my key ring. The new brass caught against the older keys with a clean sound. The radiator knocked from the living room, 3 hollow bangs followed by a hiss. I looked toward it. Leah watched me. "That thing has been doing that all week," she said. "Are you telling me or asking me to fix it?" "Just telling you." "All right." She carried our coffee into the living room and sat on the couch. I lowered myself into the blue chair beside the window. The light fell across the pottery wheel, the scratched table, and the green shards standing in the planter's soil. The radiator knocked again. I left my tools in the truck and stayed.